Oh my goodness. Good morning, good afternoon. Whatever it is for you, I hope you're having a fantastic day. My name is Zach Shomler. This is Strong Opinion Sports episode, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this. I believe it's 536. Is that right?
It is 5:36, and I cannot tell you how much hearing "Oh my goodness" makes me happy, brings a joy into my heart. It's silly fun, but it's fun, and I love it.
So my name is Zach. Joining me is my dad, Steven Shomler. I'm in Vegas for the Shrine Bowl. Going to hang out with Brett Coleman and Marcus Whitman this week. Dad, it's not warm here, but it's also not cold. I would call it sweatshirt weather,
Sweatshirt
where
weather, okay.
t-shirt all day. When it gets dark, the sun goes away, so does the warmth. But then at night, it's not really cold. It's just not warm. Sweatshirt weather.
One of the things I love about Vegas, and I finally figured out what really spoke to me about it. As a kid, as you know, I love Disneyland. Disneyland's lit up so beautiful at night, and then Vegas lit up at night. It just kind of reminded me of that. I go, oh, that's why I like Vegas so much. I like how pretty it looks at night, and it really does look pretty at night.
Oh, I got a video to send you. I was at the MGM Grand. I drove by it. Let's say I didn't like stop and hang out, but I was there and I drove by it and I got a video of it on my GoPro. I'll send you, and it's like green and pretty and it's a interesting town. I don't People are not as friendly here. But they're not mean. They're just like reluctantly pleasant. Like
Yep.
they're not like New York where they hate you, but they're definitely a little bit apprehensive if they're going to be nice to you or not. It's really interesting. I love the culture of every different city I go to, and you get a vibe for it. What's really kind of a mind melter, I almost said MF, I don't want to say that, a mind melter, is that you see the casino the same way you see like a Starbucks on every corner in a normal city. And every city has their certain different businesses, coffee shops, restaurants, schools, post office, whatever. In Vegas, the same distribution of every other business is that there's also casinos just next to Wendy's everywhere throughout the city. It's not just on the strip. It's like throughout this entire area. I thought it was all centered on the Vegas strip, but no. Like I saw the Sunset Casino, I think is what it's called today. And it's beautiful, but it's like in the middle, it's by a Walmart. You're like, what the heck? Why is it so? It's just interesting how it's spread out through the city. There's just franchises or different casino establishments spread out the same way you would see a McDonald's or a Starbucks. It's so interesting to me.
And you, just a couple of things about Vegas. As long as we're on a Vegas tangent, hope that's okay. But if you fly in or out of Vegas, they have got slot machines just before you get on the plane, and there are people waiting to get on the plane playing slot machines. People get off the plane and head right over to the slot machine in the airport, which I can't imagine pay very well, but it's just everywhere.
Dude, there are people doing slot machines at the gas station. I'm like, where have you gone to in life? That's why I try not to judge, but I'm like, man, I'm filling up my gas. You're doing a slot machine. We are not on the same page in life. Now I want to ask you, I've got one more thing, but we should save it for later. I did something today for the first time that you will, I think, not be proud of me for, but it's not really negative. And that's the teaser I'm going to give. We'll circle back to that. Okay. Yeah, you'll laugh when you find out what it is.
And then go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, no, just
I had two things for Vegas. I cannot remember what the second one was, but hopefully when you share me that thing, you will. But you going to hang out with Brett Coleman?
Yep, correct.
So, I don't like him sometimes. Do you know why?
I do know why, and it's not what people think.
It's because he has the most incredible whiskey cocktails, and he puts them on Instagram account. And I love whiskey. I love whiskey cocktails. I just want to have those whiskey cocktails that Brett Coleman always has. And so sometimes I just get really like, oh, I know what I get. I get really jelly at him. You know what that
if
means?
I'm lucky, I'm going to have a cocktail with Brett Coleman. And you know what I had today for the first time? Sangria. It's wine and a cocktail combined. And that's not the thing I was hinting at later for the show, but I had sangria for the first time today, and I was like, this is the best thing ever. It's wine and a cocktail combined. It was fun. I don't know. I want to ask.
Did you hear what I said that I was jelling? And did you even understand that?
I ignored your attempt to sound like a 25-year-old. I was like, no, let's just ignore that one. You're not in college. I don't even talk like that. Dad, I don't even talk like that. And I'm 25. I looked out, someone the other day, I was in San Luis Obispo. They said, what's your Snapchat? And I looked at them just with a disgusted look. I'm like, dude, I'm 25 years old. I haven't used Snapchat since I was in high school. Well, I can't. I was almost offended. Another adult outside of college asked me for my Snapchat. I was like, What's happening? Dad, I want to ask you, did you nail all 4 of your picks for this weekend? Because I look back and I go, I think he got everything right. Is
I
that what
did.
happened?
I put on a tweet Saturday morning, put out a tweet on my Twitter account, and I got all 4 right. I was 4 for 4. So now I think I am 8 for 10 for the playoffs so far, which is pretty amazing. I feel pretty good about that.
You know what you bring to the show that I think is really, really good? I cannot stomach doing predictions. I like I'm broken. I can't do it. I don't know why exactly, but I even like tried. I really sat down today and looked ahead to next weekend and I tried to make predictions and I came up with interesting stuff to say, but I'm like I can't make a prediction. Thank goodness we've got you who can you got the cojones to make predictions. And I think it adds kind of a fun thing to the show because I love giving people something to look forward to. Was Steven right? Was Steven wrong? I can't do it, but you bring that element to the show and I love it.
And I'm such an incredible, knowledgeable football genius. I
Get out
mean,
of here.
I can say cover 2. I can say spider Y banana. I can say those things.
I'm sure you can say them. I don't think you know what they mean. I what I love about you, Dad, is you represent the most basic of football fans. I think you speak for some of the audience, and I think that's lovely. Can we talk about so I know you love this player. So I want to start with you telling me the joy you felt watching what happened in Buffalo this past weekend with Joe Burrow and the Bengals.
It made me so happy. I love Joe Burrow. I love his confidence. He has confidence, not arrogance. I love his swagger. I love his demeanor. I absolutely love Cincinnati, the city, not necessarily the organization, but the city. You and I visited there. We saw Tom Brady play at Bengal Stadium. Skyline chili. You and I ate a version of that when you were growing up. I had some version of that when I was a kid. We got to go to Skyline Chili. We did a podcast with Skyline Chili, a culinary treasure podcast. And so to see him succeed and get as far as he's gotten, it made me so stinking happy.
So in my old age, I say that jokingly. In my old age, though, I can't stomach a snowy winter anymore. I just can't do it. The cold, I can't handle it.
Too much
The
arthritis in your bones.
Yeah, oh, yeah, and I get sad and cold but the only place I could live that has a snowy winter is Cincinnati, Ohio. I love it. It's a medium-sized town. It's a blue-collar attitude, incredible beer, fun sports scene. I love it, man. I really love that city. You mentioned something. You said confidence, not arrogance. And I wanted to find that difference real quick for Joe Burrow because Joe Burrow I watch Joe Burrow and I'm so inspired by his undying belief in himself. He's not cocky. Cocky means in order to elevate yourself, you push other people down. And I don't see that. I'm sure it happens here and there, like you talk a little bit of trash during a game. But the way Joe Burrow carries himself is not, I'm better than you, you suck, I'm amazing. It's he just totally has confidence that whatever situation he comes across and runs into, he can find a way to succeed and make it work for himself. And I aspire to be like that. I think everyone can look up to Joe Burrow, and it's incredible watching his development as a human and the 4-year run he's been on, right? To be in back-to-back AFC titles, win a Heisman Trophy, win a national title, come back from tearing his ACL. And I really love his undying belief in himself. And I just think that everyone can look at that and kind of take a lesson from him and learn from him. Cause I just think that's the best thing about him is he just really believes in himself and he believes in his teammates. And it's not it comes from a place of confidence and peace about who he is, not about, it's nothing against people he's competing against, if that makes sense.
Yeah, he doesn't. I don't think he walked around with a sense of arrogance that I'm better than you are. One of the football people I love to hate. Strong hate is a strong word, but it probably applies. Is Aaron Rodgers, and he just seems like he just thinks he's smarter than everyone else, and he may not think that, but that's the vibe I get from him. And like I'm smarter than all of you, and I don't think that.
What I would say is I think that the best way to put this is Joe Burrow's confidence comes from a place of it's internal, not
Yes,
external. His
yeah,
energy is about himself and he believes in himself, but it's not about putting other people down. And that's just such a fine line to walk. And he does it brilliantly. Did you even see there was a quote today, or I think it was today? He was interviewed, and I guess he said on the field, "I'm him." I'm him. Like, you kind of that thing you see, it's a kind of a meme you see on Twitter and whatever. And when he got asked about it, he goes, he kind of laughed, but it came across as like a genuine moment of humility where it's like, I guess you kind of you black out on the field sometimes and you say stuff. He didn't even really remember saying it. And it just was so genuine. And I really, really want this to be heard. We have seen Tom Brady go from when Tom Brady's career first started, won his first Super Bowl in New England, came out of nowhere, very similar to what Brock Purdy's doing now. Tom Brady was the American dream. Tom Brady was a kid who defied all odds, came out of nowhere. And I was barely alive. I wasn't following football. I was like 5 years old when Tom Brady made his ascension to start dominating the football world. But I would imagine he was the darling story in the league. There wasn't anyone who hated Tom Brady. The same way, no one has got any animosity towards Brock Purdy. He's fun, he's new, he's exciting. Would you agree? No one really has a reason to hate Brock Purdy unless you're a Seahawks fan?
Correct. And even they're too nice. That's why they're
Yeah,
going to
like,
re-sign Geno Smith, because they're too nice.
he's a fun new story. Tom Brady used to be that. Tom Brady used to be something that everyone aspired to be like and everyone loved. And as the years went on, Tom Brady went from a fun new story to someone people hated. People got tired of him, and the narrative changed from the American dream, this incredible story, to something people were tired of. And I really hope the same thing doesn't happen with Joe Burrow. Right now, everyone loves Joe Burrow. He's turned around the Bengals. He's an underdog. He's fun. He wins. And right now, everyone seems to be on the train of he's really confident and that's really cool. My fear is that Joe Burrow is going to stay the same person for the next 15 years, dominate the NFL. But 15 years from now, people will be saying, he's arrogant, he sucks, he talks all this trash. And I'm like, I just worry that the narrative will change if he's around too long. And that makes me sad.
It could happen. I think that I think we do have a culture in the United States where we like the underdog and we like the person that's rising up. But I think things are shifting, and I think your generation will probably be more into someone like Joe Burrow, who's consistently who they are. I think Generation X and definitely the Boomers, they're the ones that get cranky and crabby and those kind of things.
Your generation.
Well, I'm Generation X. I'm not a Boomer.
Oh,
I am the feral,
no, you're
amazing,
right. It's about 10 years
self-sufficient
older
generation.
than you.
Yeah.
Actually, no, I know. So my friend is 37, and he talked about his parents being boomers, and they're the generation that won't cancel cable, right? They will not move on. Like it's cultural for them they just refuse to watch. He was talking about how Dr. Pimple Popper is a TV show his mom watches, and he was like, Mom, that's free on YouTube. It was a YouTube channel before a TV show. You're sitting through like 10 minutes of commercials every episode. What are you doing? You could watch it for free. And she's like, this is how we do it. We watch TV. We sit in front of our TV and watch our cable. They'll never cancel cable. You're 10 years younger, and you, as far as I know, don't have cable. You have like streaming services, and you're kind of hip and young, and you're on Twitter, and you're trying, man. How grateful are you? It's called you hip and young.
That's right. And I'm on TikTok even.
I can't stand it. Yeah.
Oh, it's
How's your
fantastic.
attention span? Is it dying completely?
What? No, it's fantastic. Okay,
Anyway,
and so
yeah.
I want to talk about the Bills a little bit.
Okay.
You only had 63 yards of rushing.
Yep.
When they lost to the Bengals. Their first drive was atrocious. I don't know what they're thinking. I just think, to cut to the chase, I think Sean McDermott is, if the Bills want to succeed, they need to fire Sean McDermott because he's a defensive-minded coach. They need to get someone that's an offensive-minded coach, and they need to really take care of the quarterback, Josh Allen, because I think he's going to decline. And if they bring everybody back, I think they went 13-3 this year. They're going to not win as many games next year. They're not going to do as well. And I just think they're on the road down if they don't get rid of it. I expected it. I predicted it, but I think people don't understand what's actually happening. And I think a good example of that for me is Stephon Diggs going crazy. I think that showed a lack of respect. I think that showed a lack of control. There's no way in the world that Stephon Diggs would have done that on a Bill Belichick team or a Sean Payton team or a McDaniel team from Miami. I just don't think that would happen because there'd be respect for the coach.
I have so much to say to all that. Number one, it's tough. Let's start with, can we start with Stephon Diggs and then I'll respond to everything else you just said?
Yeah.
How would you respond to the counterpoint to anyone criticizing Stephon Diggs saying, well, if Tom Brady does that, it's passion. When Stephon Diggs does it, it's out of line. Where is the difference there? And it's interesting to me that there's some people have said like, he won't be allowed the generosity of saying that's passion and competitiveness. Whereas other players like Tom Brady do that same thing. Tom Brady breaks an iPad, and I don't like that stuff from Tom Brady. I think it's a lack of emotional maturity. Even though I love Tom Brady, I how would you respond to that critique of people criticizing Stephon Diggs? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that the difference for me with Stephon Diggs is not that he was pissed off and not that he expressed that he was pissed off, it's that he attacked his quarterback.
Mm.
That to
It's
me crosses a line.
you're you're going after someone publicly. You're it's not only I don't know if it's humiliation exactly, but if you go to your boss and say, "This guy's," you stand in the office and you point at your boss and say, "This guy sucks." You can't it's like it's not an exam, it's dissension. It's not good. So you're right. Maybe there's something about openly coming after somebody that's not quite a good look.
Yeah, and for me, if Tom Brady said, "My coach sucks," publicly, I would be like, "Dude, that's not cool. That's not okay. That's not
Mm.
passion. That's
So
that's
you
crossing a line."
it's breaking an inanimate object and being pissed off is different than publicly shaming somebody on your own
And
team that you're supposed to work with long term.
I think as far as it affects the team and as far as it's evidence of there's a problem, I do think that breaking it is emotional maturity issues, possibly. I'm not saying it's not emotional maturity issues, and I'm not saying it's okay to just go around breaking things, and that's a good way to express your anger or a healthy way to express your anger. But my issue is when you're attacking other people that you're supposed to be on the same team with. It's like getting in a fight with your spouse in public, in the market or in the restaurant. It just there's something's wrong there. That's just not what you do. You
Yeah,
don't
you don't go to Olive Garden and get in a shouting match.
Yeah, you don't insult your spouse publicly. It's just not. If you do, there's a problem in the relationship.
Mm. I'll tell you what. Hey, I can't afford to break an iPad. If anyone can, it's Tom Brady. I'll say that. And like we do live in different realities a little bit.
Now, just to be clear, being an Apple fan, Tom Brady did not break iPads. Those
uh,
were Microsoft Surface
so
nonsenses.
maybe it's okay. Maybe
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
fine.
I think it's break all the Microsoft stuff you want, as far as I'm concerned.
Fair enough. Hey, I actually like that train of thought. So you said something, and I want to talk about it. It's Sean McDermott might have hit his ceiling, and is probably plateauing, and taking maybe Buffalo as far as he can. Um, I tend to actually agree with that. I don't like that because I really like Sean McDermott. He seems like a wonderful human. Like I'd love to play for him as far as interacting with him. He seems like a great guy. So it's not a personal attack, but what I will say is that I worry there's a lack of urgency with a couple NFL teams. And in the NFL, it's a copycat league, and you hear that a lot, meaning that when a coach on offense, for example, is doing something really successful, other NFL teams will copy that and try to do the same thing as them. So you see people copying other people's success. But what seems to not be happening in the NFL is teams looking around and going, why are teams failing? Let's avoid that same mistake. And we saw the Colts and Andrew Luck. We saw the Colts not really have a sense of urgency when it came to supporting Andrew Luck, and it led to a massive, massive underachievement by him. In fact, he left his career early. I look around the NFL and I see Justin Herbert in LA with the Chargers as a defensive head coach. They're massively underachieving in LA with the Chargers, and it's frustrating because you want them to hire a better coach. You see Buffalo appear to have hit a ceiling and kind of plateaued and taken their success as far as they can. If you don't, so you can keep Sean McDermott, and that's fine. He hasn't done horrible, 13-3, back-to-back playoff appearances. Like let's respect that. That's a successful year. But if you want to go farther, you got to do something different. And to not hire, to not maybe go after Sean Payton, for example, a brilliant offensive head coach who we think both of you and me could get more out of Josh Allen. It shows a lack of urgency. And that makes me concerned that you don't recognize what you have. You've got a really, really special, talented quarterback, Josh Allen. And I would want to maximize his opportunity and maximize his success and make something happen sooner. So what do you have to say to that idea of a lack of urgency from NFL teams trying to get the most out of their incredible young talented quarterbacks?
I don't know that it's urgency, but I think it's a lack of hunger, and it's some complacency. They're not hungry to win it all. They are happy they're 13-3. Now they're sad that they lost again and they didn't make it, as far as they wanted. But I think they're sad, but they're thrilled. They're 13-3. They're no longer losers. Oh, for so many years we were so long losers. So I
Mm.
think there's complacency. that's a problem there. And I think it's cluelessness that they don't understand. I don't think they're hungry and in it to do whatever it takes to win it all, because you're going to take a hit for firing a nice guy. But
It's a risk. It's a
I
huge
would,
risk.
if I was the owner and I'm a billionaire, I would not blink. I would say, Sean, you're a great guy, but you're done, because I don't need a nice guy. I need an offensive quarterback that's going to get us far, or coach, it's going to get us farther than you have. You've been here 6 years. I just don't think it's going to happen. I got to go with my gut. I'm going to try and get someone that's going to get us where we want to go.
The question that maybe should be asked in Buffalo is, do you want to go 13-3, or do you want to win a Super Bowl?
And the good news is they aren't going to go 13-3 next year. And so then maybe next year they'll decide. But then that's another year, like you said, that they've burned. You get, it's like you get 10 matches in a matchbook, and then you keep lighting it and throwing on a wet log. You're just burning years.
That's why I say it's a lack of urgency, because if I have Justin Herbert as my quarterback or Josh Allen as my quarterback, and I'm like, this guy's incredibly talented, I have a fear of wasting good years of their career. That's where that urgency comes from. And so is it a risk to fire someone like Sean McDermott, who I think both of you and I respect him. He's a good coach. But how much do you want to get any farther? That's why I say it's a lack of urgency. It's almost like you don't respect what you have. I love that, the word complacency, though. You're comfortable, you like it, and you're maybe not hungry enough to go farther.
And speaking of coaches in that game, I heard this little tidbit about Zach Taylor, that he really drove home to his team that, hey, they are 13-1 for home playoff wins. They were so excited to not to, then for them it was a big, like, not a challenge. Oh, be afraid of it. Like, yeah, let's ruin that. Let's make them 13-2. Let's not make them 14-1. It's really hard to win playoff games in Buffalo, and we're going to go in there and do it. And his team loved that challenge. I think because they love him and they're fighting, and they've got Joe Burrow, and they've got all this energy and intensity that is not present over on the Bills sidelines.
I've got a lot of praise for Zach Taylor, man. I got a couple things to say. First of all, I think he really outcoached the Bills. He, like, his game plan was awesome on offense. It was really, that's another thing that's underrated about this game from Buffalo's perspective is Sean McDermott's a defensive minded head coach. Like, I know he's not the defensive coordinator, Leslie Frazier is, but as a defensive mind, this is part of his responsibility to have the defense prepared to play the Cincinnati Bengals. And I felt like their game plan on defense wasn't very good. But on top of that, the one thing that's got me all in on Zach Taylor now is hearing Joe Burrow talk about Zach Taylor. Joe Burrow said, like, there was a quote. He said, like, the window is open every year I'm here. When asked about the Super Bowl window, the Bengals, reporter said, Joe, how do you feel about the Super Bowl window? Do the Bengals opportunity to win a Super Bowl? When does that open and when can it close? And he said, as long as I'm in Cincinnati, the Super Bowl window is open. We've got a shot to win a Super Bowl. And then he actually, the quote was, as long as I'm here and Zach Taylor is here. So in Joe Burrow's head, he's Sean Payton and Drew Brees. He's got a coach who's got his back, who rallies the troops, and he likes working with. And that's really interesting to me. When someone like Joe Burrow tells me something, I believe him. And if that's the guy he's rocking with, that he believes in, I think that says something to me.
Have you heard anything that tells you anything anecdotally that that's how Josh Allen feels about Sean McDermott?
No.
Yeah, there you go. Anything else about that game?
I do have one thing.
Okay.
It's the idea of, and maybe this is looking ahead too much. Okay, so we can talk about, I think we should actually talk about this later too. But the Bengals are now moving on to the AFC title game. One game from the Super Bowl. Last year, they lost the Super Bowl. And can they stomach losing another Super Bowl? Maybe if they win, great. But I asked the question, is it better for Cincinnati to lose next weekend against Kansas City in the AFC title game than it is, is that a better loss that you can bounce back from more easily than losing a Super Bowl?
So I think generally, and I've been thinking about this for a while, my thoughts have changed and they've evolved, but I think generally losing a Super Bowl, you have a big hangover and you
Yep.
suck. And that didn't happen to the Bengals this year. And I
No.
think if they lost 3 or 4 Super Bowls in a row, like the Bills did when I was young, I think that could really do them in. But I think this year, my current thinking now is this year, if they beat the Chiefs and they win the AFC and they're the best team in the AFC, and for 2 years in a row, they've told the Chiefs, by action, you're not as good as us. I think the city of Cincinnati will love that, and the organization will love that, and it won't. Their Super Bowl hangover won't be as bad because they're going to focus on the win they had, beating Kansas City and putting Kansas City in its place.
Mm.
Because everyone talks like Joe Burrow is not as good as Patrick Mahomes, and the Chiefs are just not as good as the Cincinnati Bengals. And that would
So you mean the Bengals aren't as good as the Chiefs?
yes, and I think that would impact that narrative.
Mm. So you think, I'll say if any team can bounce back from losing 2 Super Bowls in a row, it's Joe Burrow's led. It's a Joe Burrow led football team. Like he's just got this undying confidence and his
Yep.
ability to rally the people around him. And I think it goes hand in hand. That's why you got to give Zach Taylor some props as well, because clearly he was saying some stuff in the building and doing the right stuff to motivate people as well. And I think that's really cool. Can we talk about one other thing now? Is that I heard I don't know who said this. I try not to look at Twitter. I do look at Twitter. I think Nick Wright said this. Nick Wright, I believe, is a Chiefs fan. He does like sports radio somewhere now, but he was talking about how Josh Allen gets more respect for losing to Kansas City last year. Remember that game where they went to overtime and it's unfair. They should have got the ball back. Yada yada. Josh Allen gets more respect in the media for losing to Kansas City than Joe Burrow gets from actually beating Kansas City last year. And that's
That
interesting to me, like the narrative around Josh Allen compared to Joe Burrow.
And I think it's why they would actually, I think if they're going to lose, I'd rather them lose the Super Bowl than lose the NFC Championship because I think that's going to dispel that. And all of a sudden, Joe Burrow he will now be treated as an equal to Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, as
He
opposed to
wouldn't
the third guy.
he wouldn't just be the king of the North, he'd be the king of the AFC,
Yes.
which has the best quarterbacks, I think, in the NFL. You look at Mahomes, Allen, Herbert. To
Yep.
look at that and say, who's won that 2 years in a row? It's Joe Burrow. You're right. That there's something to that. That's really interesting.
Yeah, and I think really when people think about who just I think, and I don't could be wrong, but when the average fan thinks about who they don't want their team to play, I think they think about teams like the Kansas City Chiefs and the Buffalo Bills. The Cincinnati Bengals don't show up in that consciousness yet, which is
Mm.
interesting. But I think another AFC Championship would help shift that.
So I don't have a favorite team, but I actually think I'm already ready to say it. If I loved, the only team I love is the Seattle Mariners. Begrudgingly, it makes me very sad. I hate being a Mariners fan, but I have to acknowledge emotionally I am, because when they lose, I'm sad, and when they win, I'm happy, and I can't escape that. If I had a favorite NFL team and I was in a playoff game, if I was playing Josh Allen, I wouldn't be thrilled. I'd be like, dang it, man. But we've seen him lose games. I wouldn't be excited to play Patrick Mahomes. That would terrify me. But I think actually at this point, Joe Burrow and what he's accomplished and his moxie and his ability to just make any situation work to his benefit. In my heart, if my favorite team was playing Cincinnati in a playoff game, I'd be like, that's the guy that scares me. That's the guy that I go, oh, like I don't want to admit this, but there's a dark part of my heart that's really terrified for my favorite team.
Yeah, I think Joe Burrow is going to have the same kind of that sense of over time. We really don't want to play him, not necessarily his team, but him. Just like for years, people had about Tom Brady, because just
Yeah.
somehow, some way, pulls it out and makes it happen.
Yeah.
Okay, ready to talk Eagles Bengals? I mean Eagles Bengals, Eagles
Eagles
Giants,
Bengals.
Eagles
That
Giants.
that might be the. Hey, is that a Freudian slip about the Super Bowl? Maybe. Yeah, the Eagles beat the Giants 38-7, and actually, I want to ask you: do you have any thoughts first to start us off?
I just it was just a beatdown. It was just an ever loving beatdown. Do you want me to say more? I got more.
No, go ahead.
I think that the Eagles look like the most complete team of the teams that are left. They just looked really, really complete. I felt like it was incredibly discouraging for the Giants when they're hoping that Jalen Hurts is 70, 80%, and his second play from scrimmage, he throws that long pass, and they're like, holy crap, if he's 70 to 80, we're screwed. If he's 100, we're really screwed. I think it was deflating to them. And then
Yeah,
nothing went well for them. Early in the game, it looks like they're going to try and make it happen. And Daniel Jones tries to run and gets tripped by his own player. In the first quarter, the coach goes for it on 4th and 8, which he should have never done. He should have just kicked. But just
yeah,
nothing fell their way. Nothing went their way. They had a dropped pass in the second half that should have been caught, could have been a touchdown. I just felt like it was all not only a beatdown, but then they didn't play well and had none of the dominoes fell their way.
yeah. I love that idea of Jalen Hurts is coming back from an injury, and maybe he won't. Maybe it gives us an edge. Maybe he's not like we're talking about. Patrick Mahomes got hurt this past weekend, and the narrative going into that game against Cincinnati is maybe Patrick Mahomes won't be at 100%. And I think the Giants were hoping they weren't going to get Jalen Hurts at full strength, and unfortunately, it looks like they did. And if that's on him at full strength, that's terrifying. I want to say I on the Giants, they didn't play a great game. But I walked away with nothing but respect for them. Like, I'm having a hard time criticizing the Giants. They were really outmatched. Like, what? Think about who's got a better roster, and think about for years who was building the Giants roster. I thought for years the Giants made really bad decisions when it came to building their football team. They had a general manager, Dave Gettleman, who I did not like and did not agree with on almost anything. And then you look at Philly, who's got not only the best general manager in football, but maybe the best general manager in sports, who just 5 years ago won a Super Bowl, and then now he's back and with basically an entire different team, different coaching staff, only like three of the same players. The Eagles are back on the doorstep of a Super Bowl. That's incredible team building to me. And so the Giants are feeling the effects of having a bad general manager for years. And I think, from my perspective, I'm impressed the Giants are even in this game. And so for them to get dominated in a game where on paper they were thoroughly outmatched, I find it hard to come down. Like, if I'm a Giants fan, I'm sad, but I'm like, I'm happy we got there. Like, we overachieved and had a good year. So I don't have much negative to say about the Giants. I just think they were thoroughly outmatched.
The Giants coach is amazing. I think Daniel Jones, under that coach, has turned a corner. We'll see if he can keep it up this next year, but I hope he does, and I think he can. And just given how the Giants organization conducts business, I think they're going to re-sign him, and he'll get a maybe not a great contract, but a pretty good contract. And then hopefully he keeps, if at least has the same level of skill he's had recently, the past few games, they're in good shape. I don't like the Bills. To me, they are terrible. Their future it looks bleak without massive changes. I feel the exact opposite about the Giants.
Hmm. Well, the Bills aren't terrible, but you're really concerned about them hitting a plateau, right? Is the Buffalo?
They're only terrible if you want to win playoff games and Super Bowls because they're going to
Mm.
do worse in the playoffs next year if they change nothing, and they're going to win fewer games next year. And for them, that is going to feel like a kick in the stomach.
So you see Buffalo about to take a step backward, maybe even a small one, but a step backward, where the Giants appear to be in a position where they could take a step forward next year.
Correct.
Mm. I'll say maybe a silver lining here in the Giants' loss, 38-7, is that if they lose 38-35 and Daniel Jones throws 5 touchdowns, I think Daniel Jones really forces you to give him a massive contract. You're going to get a better deal from the quarterback position if you re-sign Daniel Jones now because of that game, and it might actually work to their benefit that because I don't think they were going to win this game regardless. But thank goodness they didn't lose barely and have Daniel Jones just dominate, because then they'd be in a position where they'd have to give Daniel Jones a massive contract, whereas now they don't. Which I think for the long term benefit of their franchise, it's better to not have to pay a quarterback a crippling amount of money.
It's better for Daniel Jones. As crazy as
Mm.
that sounds, he will play longer and make more with a little less money and them having better people around him than if he gets a big contract and then he has no good players.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Can we talk about we'll get to Jalen Hurts in a moment. We both love him. But let's talk about Nick Sirianni, the Philadelphia Eagles head coach. Man, I just love this man. I love his attitude. I love his approach. He's from a schematic standpoint, play design and creativity. He's so good at putting his players in a position to succeed. Like, he really gets the most out of his personnel, which I love. But on top of like his mind and offensive genius, I just love his attitude and his leadership. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, I've got a couple Nick Sirianni nuggets I think are amazing. So Friday night before the game, he had his team, he had a team meeting, and he played them the rap battle from 8 Mile, Eminem's movie 8 Mile,
Yeah. Oh, what a
just to
movie.
fire them up and motivate them. And his message to the team: let them talk. We'll show them who's the toughest for the longest. And just how cool to have that.
Mm.
Just a coach has got a cool motivating thing that resonates with the people. With his team. I just love that little nugget. And
I like first of all, 8 Mile, incredible movie. That's, if you haven't seen 8 Mile, go watch it. But I love the attitude of, we're not going to talk. Let them talk. We're going to dominate them. We'll show you with our play where like when the dog barks, the lion isn't bothered. And the best way to make a statement is just by winning 38-7 and dominating a team
Look at
rather
you
than
spitting
talking on
proverbs.
Twitter. So, yeah, it's almost like you raised me.
Hey, okay, another Nick Sirianni thing is after the game. Rap artist Meek Mill, a lot of people know, but he is prominent in Philly and really likes the Eagles and has performed at Eagle games. And Dream Chaser, he's got this whole thing, and he's got Nightmares and Dreams. I think that's right, is one of his songs. And so there's a Dream Chasers necklace that the Eagles defensive back C.J. Gardner-Johnson gave to the coach, and he was wearing it after the game. Nick Sirianni was wearing it after the game in the locker room, and how cool is that? He's just like leaning into it. Let's go for it.
I got something, man. Do you have more to say on Nick Sirianni?
Yeah, I've got one more when you're ready.
Go for it, man. Hell yeah.
Okay, so he defends his players, defends his team, and so it's the press conference after that game. They've put the beat down on the Giants, and at the press conference, so the defensive coordinator is Jonathan Gannon, and Angelo Catalandi. I don't know if I'm saying it right, but Angelo is the morning host on 94.1 WIP, and he's a frequent critic of Gannon, the defensive coordinator. And so here's Nick Sirianni's quote from the playoffs. I mean, from the podium post game. Sometimes I have to hear some things about Jonathan Gannon. I don't know if it's you guys. It might be more other people. I won't say names, Angelo, but this guy is an unbelievable coordinator. The fact that he doesn't get respect from our own radio station blows my mind. People love to play for this guy. He called out the guy, and I'm not going to name names, Angelo, and I just think everybody just love that. Like, you get them. We're tough. We're bad. We're the Phillies. We're Philly. We're the Eagles. And I just think that just fired up his staff. It's got to fire up his team. And right there in the press conference, that was like a public beatdown.
I got two things to say on that. First of all, good for Angelo. You know how much better his show did the next day in ratings? Like, people tuned in to hear what he had to say in response to Nick Sirianni, which good for it. Like, that's awesome, man. Good for him. Like, for business, that was good for Angelo. Whoever the hell he is, I'm sure that's awesome for him. And I've always said, if I could do local radio in any city, it'd be Philly or New York. And I'd probably lean Philly, because that would be like the anger and the passion and the energy there is incredible. I love them or hate them. Like, I love their fan base. And I think it makes sports better when people are like that. But then, man, for a player, a staff, everyone to know that your head coach has your back, that is absolutely incredible. And I just love that, man. I really, really think that it's so meaningful to know that your coach has your back and is willing to defend you. And that's the kind of stuff that creates loyalty, where you fight hard for that man. And when, let's say in a fourth quarter of an important game, Nick Sirianni yells at you. Well, that's the guy that's had my back and had all of our backs all year. So he's earned your respect. So you're not going to flare your back and get mad at him. You're going to listen, because at the end of the day, he's had your back all year and has your back all season. And so I think what's kind of going on behind the scenes there is Nick Sirianni's earned the respect of his players and his personnel and his coaching staff to such a massive degree. And that's part of why they're winning.
Yeah, I know you've had coaches that you've played for that had your back, and coaches you've played for that didn't have your back, and it really destroys team chemistry. And for people that haven't played football, they've worked at places where they had a boss that had their back, and they worked at places where a boss didn't have their back. And it is demoralizing and creates problems when you have a sense, or you'd flat out know the boss doesn't have your back. And it is energizing and empowering when you know that you have a boss that does have your back.
And frankly, when someone has your back and supports you, it also can open the door and give the coach the right to coach you harder and criticize you sometimes. Because
Yes.
they've earned the right.
Yep.
If I just think that's so psychologically important. And I've said it before, but I want to repeat. I was so wrong about Nick Sirianni. When he got hired, he had this like nervous, sweaty, mumbly press conference. I thought was a terrible look. I remember saying, like, I'm trying to be fair, but that's a terrible press conference. And he has turned into such an incredible leader, and he's exactly what Philadelphia needed. And I'm so glad I was wrong. And like the human element of it is that he seems like an awesome person, like a guy I'd love to talk to and get a beer with. And I whenever I talk about a coach or a player, I try to also acknowledge and understand their heart. And from the outside looking in, it seems like Nick Sirianni's heart is in such a good place, and he's such like a lovely human, and that makes him easy to root for.
Yep, and I want to put on my dad hat for a second. Um, just because you said earn the right, and you're there's things you've heard me teach that I just think are so helpful. I just got to share it if that's all right. But I think before you tell someone something that's tough, that's hard, you have to ask two questions. One, have you earned the right? If you haven't a right to tell them, it's just not going to go well. And the second question is, do they really want to hear it? Because even if you've earned the right, sometimes people just don't want to hear it. And it does no good. Like, you can't teach a pig to sing. All you do is frustrate the teacher and irritate the pig. So do not tell people things that they don't that you haven't earned the right to tell them, and that they don't want to hear. Tough
Yeah.
things, hard things.
Well, I mean, let's go into the tangent for a second. If you're in a relationship and your girlfriend's talking to you about something, sometimes you can even ask like, "Hey, do you want someone to listen or do you want feedback?" Right? Because sometimes they don't want you to try to help them solve the problem or try to give them feedback. They just want someone to listen to them. And then other times, if I'm in, I had incredible like hour-long phone call with a good friend of mine, Marcel, the other day, and he's kind of going through a breakup, and we've got a lot of parallels between our breakups. And I was like, "Hey man, like, can I offer advice?" Like I asked him. I said, I
Yep.
have some thoughts, but are you comfortable with me sharing my thoughts? And he says, "Yeah, please tell me." But I wanted to make sure he was okay with that first. I didn't
And
just spew and talk down to him because that would have been totally inappropriate.
And you've earned the right with Marcel, by the way, who's an incredible young man. He's just phenomenal. So you've earned the right with him.
Yeah.
And you made it was very clear that he wanted to hear what you had to say. You had some maybe tough things to share, but it worked out. And I just think that's an important lesson. All right,
Yeah.
you want
By
to
the way,
talk?
that's a former XFL NFL player. I'm gonna just say went to high school with him. Pretty cool. I know. Sorry, I had to, it's weird to acknowledge Marcel who played for Missouri and like on a football podcast to not say like his background. I love him to death, man.
He's a
I got
he's a phenomenal human being.
we got to talk about Jalen Hurts though. We
Okay.
have to. I absolutely love Jalen Hurts. He I I made a video years ago, like my three favorite college quarterbacks of all time. It was Baker Mayfield, Gardner Minshew, and Jalen Hurts, and their stories in college alone were just incredible. Whether that plays, in fact, I think I even said in the video like. I don't know that Jalen Hurts is gonna have a good NFL career. I don't know that Gardner Minshew's gonna have a good NFL career. It's funny they're actually teammates now, which is hilarious. But what I just want to say is the I don't know if story arc is the right word, but the journey of Jalen Hurts to go from when he was at Alabama, getting benched in the national title game against Georgia and having Tua replace him, and then to sit on the bench for a year after that at Alabama, and go a whole year as the backup, then go to Oklahoma, then Philly, and every year I have watched Jalen Hurts, he gets better. He makes an incremental step forward. And that is so hard to do. And whatever Jalen Hurts' offseason process is, it's incredible and has to be replicated. It's like so, it's, we almost never see a quarterback make progress as steadily as Jalen Hurts has. One of the only other people that do that is Tom Brady, who, like, every year you watch Tom Brady, he's a slightly better, slightly different quarterback. Jalen Hurts, I would imagine he's got a team of people helping him. Like they probably get together in April and he watches every game and all the film and evaluates and then picks like two or three things to work on that offseason because you can't overhaul your entire game as a quarterback every year. You can't come out with a different throwing motion and different footwork. If you focus on too many things to improve that, it's an overload and it's just not an achievable goal. But clearly Jalen Hurts picks like two or three things every offseason and then gets way better at them and takes a big step forward. And from a when you're really looking at it's an incremental benefit every year. But then when you step back and you go, look at where he is now compared to where he was at Alabama, it's an incredible leap forward. And I just really love that about Jalen Hurts is that when you stack small steps forward over a long amount of time, the progress is so huge. I climbed a mountain one time and it's like Jalen Hurts looks. I was standing atop of Mount St. Helens 2 summers ago, looking back, and I'm like, I can't believe I climbed that far, and I did. And going along the way, it was slow and it took a long time. But if you do slow, steady progress for long enough, you'll climb a mountain. And Jalen Hurts has just climbed a mountain as an NFL quarterback. Like that the same person who now is probably going to lead Philadelphia to a Super Bowl and might win the NFL MVP is the same human being who got benched in a national title game and was known in Alabama for not being a good thrower of the football. That's an incredible dramatic change that's taken years of work. And I just love that about Jalen Hurts. I find such admiration for him and his work ethic and his approach and whoever's helping him.
Well, and here's what I really love about that too is you said it. He's going to lead. He's leading his team, and I really think leaders galvanize. If I had to do leaders, years ago, I heard training that was appropriate that leaders influence, but I think even better, yes, they influence, but really good leaders galvanize. And I think that he is the actual leader in the same way that Joe Burrow galvanizes his team and he leads his team. Jalen Hurts is not just a really good quarterback that's gotten better, he's become better as a leader, and everyone looks to him as the leader to make it happen. I mean, my goodness, was it Nick Sirianni who was comparing him to Michael Jordan? Sincerely? Foolishly? I mean, he was trying to say, this is how much I respect my quarterback. So he went with a Michael Jordan comparison. I think, and I don't care about the comparison, but that's where his heart was. That's where the coach's heart was. That's a true leader when the coach wants to praise you that way.
I'll challenge. I don't know if challenge is the right word, but I want to catch you in something you said because I know that listeners are like, "What he said? What now?" They're going to fight you on it. I don't know that he's gotten better as a leader. I think he's always been that guy. Like I think that's why when Jalen Hurts was at Alabama and wasn't the best passer on the roster, like Tua was behind him and Tua was throwing the football better. There's a reason why Nick Saban, the head coach at Alabama, had a really hard time moving on from Jalen Hurts. Why it took him so long to bench him, why he allowed him to stay another year as a backup. Do you know how difficult it is to be a backup quarterback when you used to be the starter? Like to the energy of someone else has my job and I'm here fighting and competing and having a good attitude. And I remember at Alabama, when Jalen Hurts was the backup behind Tua, that kind of lost year of his career, where he only was playing when they were beating like, you know, Ole Miss 45-10 or something, right? Whenever they had a big lead, he came in garbage time at the end of the fourth quarter. And by the way, he looked awesome in that time. He appeared to have a really supportive and great relationship with Tua. There was no ego there. He was a great leader even then. Like that, I really think, I think he's always been an incredible leader.
I agree with you that he's gotten better as a player. I'm not saying he wasn't a great leader. I just think he has continued to become a better leader.
Mm. Well, let's say this,
I
man.
didn't say he sucked as leader. I never thought he was
Yeah,
a bad leader, but I think he's gotten better and better, and he just speaks with presence and confidence that is even better than what he had when he was at Alabama.
I mean, Jalen Hurts.
And
It,
humbleness. He's got some humbleness. It's
oh,
kind of an interesting mix. He's got humbleness and confidence and presence and power all rolled into one. It's impressive.
it's a smooth amount of power.
Yep.
I don't know how to, it's like I really, really would imagine, given his approach to football, right, where he really values growing and getting better and taking steps forward. I would imagine if you sat down and talked to him, he's an incredibly kind, just a person who also values personal growth.
Yep.
And it's just hard to imagine. I don't know Jalen Hurts personally. It's hard to imagine, given his approach to playing the quarterback position and given how much he clearly values making progress as a quarterback, that he doesn't also approach life that way. And he probably, I would think, also takes steps to work and grow as a human. And that would mean he's definitely a better leader than he was at Alabama because that's how he lives his life. Is he's just constantly taking strides and getting better. And I would love to like sit down and talk to him. I don't you get that sense that Jalen Hurts is just like an incredible person too, whether it's being recorded or not. Like I bet talking life with Jalen Hurts around a campfire would be really special.
Well, and the other thing for me is, I call them life change achievement books. I'm always reading one or two at a time. I think it's really important, to read a
Sure.
book a month, 10 pages a day, get you through most of those kind of books in a month. And I would love to find out what books have you read in the past 5 years that really spoke to you?
I bet he
That
has an
would be
answer.
fantastic.
I bet he has an answer, man. I
I'm sure
really
he
do.
does. I'm sure he
Yeah.
does.
Just let's just say lovely human. Jalen Hurts, easy to root for, awesome quarterback, probably gonna win the NFL MVP, and what a lovely human he seems to be.
All right, Cowboys 49ers. Before we do it, I'm feeling, you know what I'm feeling right now? I'm
Huh.
feeling some joy for Rocket Money, baby. The sponsor of this episode of Strong Opinion Sports.
Oh man. Are you wasting money on subscriptions? Dad, did you know that 80% of people have subscriptions they've forgotten about? And maybe you're listening and it's you and you've got like an Amazon Prime that you're not using account you're using, or a Hulu account you haven't used in like 6 months, and you're like, "Oh, I'm still paying for that. That's a problem." Well, there's this great app I use that helps me track all the money I'm spending. Like, what exactly am I spending and what am I spending it on? So I owe a big thank you to Rocket Money for sponsoring this episode. It used to be known as Truebill. It's now known as Rocket Money. And the Rocket Money app shows you all of your subscriptions in one location and then cancels whatever you don't want. Rocket Money can even find subscriptions you didn't know you had. You know, by the way, this was me. I was literally paying SoundCloud, $8 a month SoundCloud account that I not only didn't know I was paying for, but once I became aware of it, I couldn't figure out how to stop paying for it. Rocket Money took care of it. Like, I didn't have to call. Can I tell you the story?
Yeah.
My account with SoundCloud was so old that their user IDs have 9 digits, but mine had 8. So when I went through the automated process with the Spotify website and phone line to cancel my thing, they're like, "Sorry, you have 8 digits. We need 9." And I'm like, "Well, I've had it for years and I couldn't cancel it." Rocket Money solved all of that. It was really, really awesome. So sometimes you'll find out you've been double charged for a subscription, or you have one you didn't know about or were paying for. To cancel a subscription with Rocket Money, all you got to do is hit the cancel button. They take care of the rest. So get rid of useless subscriptions now. Go to rocketmoney.com/SOS. That's rocketmoney.com/SOS. Cancel your unused or unnecessary subscriptions right now at rocketmoney.com/SOS. And little commentary, they're a great sponsor. I think times are tough and they help you save money. So that's the kind of sponsor I live for, right? I love anything that helps you save money, to help me save money. And I also like working with them behind the scenes. So rocketmoney.com/SOS. They're legitimately awesome. Dad, how was that? Was that a good ad read or what?
That was good. And it's true because you called me. You were excited. You found, that you're saving money. You've got SoundCloud was coming
Dude,
after you.
how insane is that? 8 digits, not 9. Like, I was so frustrated
Yeah,
because
that was the SoundCloud you got when you were 12 years old.
every system SoundCloud had to cancel your subscription was failing me, and the only way to do it was I just go. Rocket Money solved it for me, and it was awesome. Let's talk about your favorite team to hate on, the Dallas Cowboys. How much joy did you feel when they lost this past weekend?
Tremendous, because like I said last episode, they have no shot. They had no shot. And just to be clear, the reason I don't like the Cowboys, I have a heart for Dak Prescott. Seems like a nice person.
Yeah.
I'd be happy Jerry Jones is getting old. Be happy if he won a Super Bowl. But Dallas Cowboys fans are so obnoxious and so arrogant and so terrible. They are not America's team. It's still, now it's been 31 years since they've won an away playoff game. So I'm always happy. Number one losing is when Aaron Rodgers loses a game. That's my greatest joy in life. But then when the Dallas Cowboys lose, that's my second greatest football related joy.
So you said you don't like, and I'm putting a word in your mouth, the arrogance of Cowboys fans, right?
Yeah, unearned, ridiculous, meaningless arrogance. Like,
It's our year every year. It's our year this year. So I want to say, I think actually now you're seeing, it's kind of sad. The delusional Cowboy fan is kind of dying. This year, I think, was like a punch in the gut for Cowboys fans, where they saw their team lose to the 49ers. And for the first time, we're like, oh, this isn't our year. And next year might not be our year either. We'll see come August. They probably will be like, it's our year, right? Like every year is. But I saw a dramatic disappointment amongst Cowboys fans where for the first time they were saying stuff that felt realistic. And I was like, you got really, like, you're turning on your own team. You're starting to have a realistic worldview. It was kind of interesting. I was like, oh, all right. Cowboys fans are waking up to the idea that Dak Prescott might be overrated and Mike McCarthy isn't really a great coach. And I was like, this is pretty cool to see.
Well, the good news is that since it's now been 31 years since they won an away playoff game, a lot of the fans that were alive in the heyday are boomers who are dying every year. So a greater and greater percentage of the really painful Cowboys fans are passing away because they're boomers who probably need to go anyways. So that's at
So,
least good news for their fan base.
my one of my best friends in the world, Sean, is a Cowboys fan, and him, like almost every other Cowboy fan, the reason he's a Cowboy fan is because of his dad, right? Have you noticed everyone's a Cowboy fan because their dad was a Cowboy fan? It's
Yep.
kind of funny. Like, it's not because they've been winning recently. And I don't- I want to ask you this: how long will it take before the Dallas Cowboys become an underdog? Right? Like the Cleveland Browns or the Detroit Lions or the Jacksonville Jaguars. Like, I think they haven't been bad long enough for that to happen because they're in the playoffs. Like, they're actually competitive to some degree. But is there ever a moment where they go from the team people believe is going to win to like a legitimate underdog? I think that's like a hilarious idea. Is the Cowboys
I
as
don't think that'll
a team
happen
people
because
don't believe
they're
in?
not a bad team. They're just not a good
Yeah,
team. They're a
that
mediocre team. They're like lukewarm soup. They're like a bowl of lukewarm soup that's not really hot and not really flavored that well. It'll keep you alive. It's just not that great. I mean, it's not bad. It's just not good.
they're mid. Dak Prescott was outplayed by a rookie seventh round quarterback, Brock Purdy. Think about that for a second. Dak Prescott got outplayed by Brock Purdy in an NFL playoff game. Which one of them is making millions and millions and millions of dollars, and which one of them is defying all odds? That's the most damning thing is that he had 2 interceptions, and once again in a big moment, Dak Prescott was underwhelming. And I said going into the year, I made a video called literally, I didn't do season predictions this year. I just like did a comment on every quarterback in the NFL. My comment for Dak Prescott was Dak Prescott's mid. He's mediocre. And I remember when they gave him a massive contract, I said, that's a mistake. He's not worth the money you're giving him. And I think Cowboys fans are starting to acknowledge that and are disappointed in admitting that we might have overpaid Dak Prescott and he might be holding us back. And it's just interesting to me.
Not only does it happen that the fans are doing it, Dallas Cowboys official Twitter account set out a tweet that said Dak Prescott gave the ball away twice in the narrow loss to the 49ers in a matchup the Cowboys had a chance to win if they didn't again generate self-inflicted wounds.
Do you know who wrote the article? Because that went on Cowboys.com, right?
Well, that was a tweet.
So someone on the Cowboy, someone employed by the Dallas Cowboys wrote that.
Yes, it was a social media, the official Dallas Cowboys Twitter account.
But what's interesting is they're operating like a news source would, right? Like that's would be a headline you read on ESPN or Fox Sports. Like,
Yep.
and I think I want to talk about this for a minute because there's with an NFL team, right? You've got all these different verticals of the franchise. You've got the media team, you've got the scouting department, you've got the coaching staff, the players. They're all hired by one man, Jerry Jones, who runs the organization. Someone in the media team got a little too honest. And I hope he keeps his job, or he or she, regardless. Because what they said was right. Like that's an accurate. If you're ESPN or Fox Sports or CBS Sports, that's an accurate headline. You know what I mean? That's a very true statement. Um, with maybe a little too much personality behind it, and I just think that's woefully fascinating, right? That someone on the media team, because I know people who work for like the Carolina Panthers on the media team, and every team has their own YouTube channel and their own website, and they write articles and they're fluff pieces, but they've got commentary and stuff. And someone on the Cowboys media team got a little too honest, and I worry for that guy's job and hope he doesn't get scolded or fired because he or she, because I love that stuff, man. That's totally an accurate representation of what legitimately happened this past weekend.
I'm looking at the Twitter account right now, and that tweet is still up 3 days ago. The exact tweet, it's still up. It is there. Um,
Good. Well, hey, there must be approval from within the building.
yeah, there has to be. There has to be. Yeah, it's
uh,
and I feel sorry for Dak Prescott because he's just not in a situation where he's going to thrive because his contract. If he would paid less money, if he made 10 million less a year, there'd be more money to get better players. But I
and
think
there'd be less expectations on him.
Yeah, and Jerry Jones got him, I think, because he's a nice guy. And I think that's the same reason Jerry Jones hired Mike McCarthy is because he's a nice guy and someone that Jerry Jones can control. Um, Jimmy Johnson was someone he couldn't control, and Jimmy Johnson, I want to read his book Swagger. His new book came out, Swagger, recently, and I wonder if Jimmy Johnson says anything snarky. He seems like a class act, but you always kind of get the sense he's not a big fan of Jerry Jones. And I think that Jerry Jones would never hire someone like Sean Payton, because I think he doesn't want, until he gets desperate, and maybe he's desperate now, and he realizes, like they're not going to do any better next year. I think they're going to do worse next year because McCartney is just not a good enough coach to get them where they want to go. They're still going to win some games and they'll do fine, but they're not going to have a better year next year than this year.
I want to humanize Dak Prescott for a moment because I really love him as a person. Like him and I have something in common. We've both had a brother who died, and that's a really painful thing that we share that sucks. He also lost his mom who died. Um, Dak Prescott's dealt with a lot of his tough stuff in life, and so as a human, I think of him and I care about him and I root for him. And as a quarterback, I look at Dak Prescott and go, he's never really had a marquee head coach. He's had Jason Garrett and Mike McCarthy. And it's kind of like I wonder, with a Sean Payton, with a better dynamic head coach, would we get more from Dak Prescott? I think the answer is yes. And that's disappointing because when you think of a player who might have something being left on the table, that's such a sad thought to me, to have a player, I think, potentially underachieved because they're not getting enough support on the coaching staff. I know he's got great players around him. He got an incredible defense, but you going to tell me if Mike McCarthy's a dynamic head coach? I don't think so. And that's sad to me, to see a player who I think could be doing better underachieve. And I don't think anyone's going to say that. I'm critical of Dak Prescott. He makes some boneheaded mistakes that are really frustrating. His first interception against the 49ers was a ball that I was like, why do you throw that? That's a terrible decision. So I'll criticize him and be honest about him. But I also have to empathize a little bit. He's never had a dynamic head coach, and that I just think he could be better with that. And that's an example of Jerry Jones, the decision maker and owner of the Dallas Cowboys, holding back his football team.
So the Giants went 9-7-1, if I'm not mistaken. What would have happened with the Giants if Dak Prescott had been the quarterback? Do you think they would have won more
Oh,
games?
I do.
So do I. I like Daniel Jones. I think he's a great kid. I want him to stay. I think Giants are on the right path. However, I think they would have even won more games with Dak Prescott, and Dak Prescott would have performed better under Brian Dable.
Look at how much better Dak Prescott, Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins is like the 15th, 16th, 14th best quarterback in the NFL. It's like there's like Derek Carr, Ryan Tannehill, Kirk Cousins. They're all this kind of mediocre, solid starting quarterback, but they're not the best quarterback in the NFL. But Kirk Cousins was so much better with Kevin O'Connell this year as a head coach.
Yep.
I think Dak Prescott could take a similar leap forward if they hired a dynamic head coach. And it goes back to what we said about Josh Allen and Justin Herbert. It's ownership and leadership on an NFL franchise, unwilling to take the risks it takes to move forward and take a step forward.
Yeah.
And
I do not understand why Jerry Jones is so committed after the game. So like, oh yeah, I'm still committed to Mike McCarthy. I don't know. I do not understand if he wants to win a Super Bowl. McCarthy is I'm so glad McCarthy won more playoff games this year than Aaron Rodgers, and he did an amazing thing managing the craziness that is Aaron Rodgers. However, he is not going to get you to a Super Bowl. It's just not going to happen. Why he doesn't just I'm going to do everything I can. I don't think Sean Payton would work for him, but like do everything I can to get a coach like him. Like why doesn't he fly his prep to Thailand and try and get Cliff Kingsbury? I don't get it. I don't understand it.
I don't know why you don't say, hey, Mike McDaniel, I'll give you $100 million to coach the Dallas Cowboys. Well, poach. Like, I don't think it's even legal. I don't think you can do that in the NFL. But I wonder, man, like, Jerry Jones is, I think he hired Mike McCarthy because this guy won a Super Bowl once upon a time. It's that idea of like talking about what you've done a long time ago rather than what you've done recently. And we're seeing it. The Cowboys have hit a ceiling. And I don't know. They're fun to hate on and make fun of, but if I was a Cowboy fan, I'd be so infuriated. Like the reason why I struggle to have a favorite team in any sport is because ownership and general managers, just decision makers in general that run a sports franchise, make decisions that I tend to not agree with. When I was a Mariner fan, and I am a Mariner fan because I have to acknowledge when they lose, I'm sad. When they win, I'm happy. But when I was like 11 years old, they traded away a lot of players I loved. They had Adrian Beltre, who went to the Houston Astros or Texas Rangers and got way better. That Raul Ibanez went to the Philadelphia Phillies and looked incredible. And they made all these moves. They traded away Adam Jones, who was like a Hall of Fame center fielder, for Eric Bedard, a pitcher who sucked and was a total disappointment. And I was 11 years old going, these are not good decisions. Why am I emotionally invested in this team that lets me down over and over and over again? If I was a Cowboy fan, I'd be like, why did we give Ezekiel Elliott a massive contract? Why did we hire Mike McCarthy and refuse to fire him? Why did we give Dak Prescott a massive contract and overpay him? I would be so frustrated with the decision making in Dallas. And I know you can't turn off fandom. I get it. But there'd be a lot of dissension in the Cowboys fan base if I was a part of it. I'd be like talking all this smack and calling out everybody and demanding people to be fired. And I'm like, you asked me to spend my money and buy jerseys and tickets and go to games and emotionally invest in your franchise, and you're giving me nothing in return. I'd be furious as a Cowboy fan.
So 49ers, they won.
They did. The 49ers, I just go back to like, they're loaded everywhere. Their head coach, their general manager, John Lynch, has done an incredible job. Like, I think the two best rosters in football are the 49ers roster and the Philadelphia Eagles roster. The 49ers are so good. They've had 3 starting quarterbacks this year, and they're a game away from the Super Bowl. And by the way, the third guy they played is better. And so they're a great team with a dynamic head coach and an awesome GM. But the dominating story that I just can't stop, it's the only thing I can really focus on. It sucks all the oxygen out of the room when it comes to the 49ers. I have a hard time focusing on all the stuff they do well. Like, I have a high school teammate playing for the 49ers, and I almost don't even care because I'm so distracted by their quarterback, Brock Purdy. And that's the story, man, is that Brock Purdy has not only exceeded all expectations, but it's, how do I even put this? I'm going to say something that's a bit out of line. Okay. We saw in 2020 with the Rona, a lot of people lose faith in systems of government, maybe is the best way to put that. Like, a lot of people, I think, trust is at an all-time low in systems of bureaucracy. I think trust in analysts evaluating college quarterbacks is also at an all-time low. I would compare Brock Purdy and what's happened with trust in people like Mel Kiper and anyone evaluating quarterbacks in the NFL draft to what happened with healthcare and coronavirus. Like, people are just like, I don't trust anybody now. To see a guy like Brock Purdy come out of nowhere and break every expectation, people are like, what am I supposed to trust now? I don't know what to do. Anybody who tells me anything now about a quarterback in the NFL draft process, I'm like, well, you didn't see Brock Purdy, who's maybe the best rookie quarterback this year. So how can I believe you when you talk about Anthony Richardson or Bryce Young? Or I saw today Mel Kiper Jr. put Will Levis, the Kentucky quarterback, as his number 1 quarterback ahead of CJ Stroud and Bryce Young. I'm like, time out. What did this guy have to say about Brock Purdy? Nothing? I didn't see Brock Purdy coming out of nowhere. So I just want to acknowledge that, like, I think fans are burned out and don't trust the draft process and these experts anymore. And I've even at one point used to consider myself one. And through my losses and lessons, I don't even engage in that conversation anymore. And I just am, not only is it fun to see Brock Purdy succeed and do well, he's enjoying it and dominating and making plays. And he's been called like a system quarterback. And people say, he's only winning because he got Kyle Shanahan and a great team around him. And that's probably true. Like,
but Trey Lance had that same system.
Yeah. So maybe back up. He's definitely benefiting from an awesome head coach, and he fell into the best situation you could possibly fall into. But the dude is making plays. He had a play where he threw back across the field to George Kittle, and George Kittle makes this crazy catch, and you're like, that's not in the playbook. That's not planned. That's Brock Purdy being a gamer and making something happen.
He's now he's gone from following a good system in the plays to creating offense for them. That's yes. The step he's taken. And that's a step Trey Lance did not take.
Dude, he's comfortable. Like, he's not, you hear him talk about LeBron James. LeBron James said, like, this guy can ball or something like that on Twitter. And Brock Purdy was like, LeBron said that? That's pretty cool. But he was even keel. And it's not just that he's playing well. I'm impressed with how comfortable Brock Purdy is in the moment. He just is so it's poise and it's peace. And I think it's really cool when anyone gets an opportunity and they're prepared and they can enjoy the moment and not be stressed out by it. And I'll tell you what, I don't know if the 49ers are going to beat Philadelphia this weekend in the NFC title game, but I would be shocked if Brock Purdy just fell apart as a quarterback. He may not win, but he's going to be comfortable and enjoy the moment and give the crowd, pump him up a couple times and beat his chest and just, he's going to be in that moment and really thrive and enjoy the environment. And that's so cool to see from a rookie quarterback who came out of nowhere.
So I do want to mention Samson. Um, it was so cool for me so you went to high school with him. You played on a high school football team with him. He rode around in my ugly blue minivan, um, and he blocked a point after. That was just so amazing. And he used to be on the Rams, and then he went. They are having a crappy year, and now he's on the 49ers having a great year.
Yeah, I got a lot to say, man. First of all, it's really cool to see. Samson's a guy who played at Eastern Washington University, played with Cooper Kupp actually. So he was drafted in the same year Cooper Kupp was by the Rams and came out of nowhere and surprised a lot of people. It's cool to see a small school player who I think probably should have played at like Oregon or Oregon State or a Pac-12 school play for years in the NFL and dominate. What's cool, man, is he really to go from the Rams to the 49ers, such a great football team. And he kind of leapt off at the right moment and peaked at the Rams and then peaked at the 49ers. Pretty cool to see that. I want to say I've never tried to leverage um, any amount of relationship I've had with Samson before on the show. I never will. He's a player in the NFL, and I know when you're a player in the NFL, a lot of people reach out to you, want to talk to you, and they want stuff from you. And I try to not be that guy. I don't want anything from Samson. I hope I've never, that's why I always underplay actually like my relationship with him, the fact that I know him, because I just don't want to come across as the guy who's like, look at, I don't want to make it about me. It's cool to see his career and I'm really proud of him and I'm happy for him. Um, and I think when it's all said and done, maybe we'll connect after his playing career. I just never want to be the guy that's like, look at me, I've got this connection to this guy. I try to downplay all that because I just know there are people out there that really reach out to any young player when they get to the NFL and are all over him and it want connections and money and stuff. And I don't want anything from Samson. I just love seeing him succeed and do well.
Well, I'm the one that brought it up. And I'm just a happy fan and a happy dad. He's an amazing young man. He played with you. I liked him then. I like him now. It made me smile to see him have a really important play. And I'm just approaching like this to happy fan. It's just how cool this great young man.
Oh, I think it's a natural thing to talk about. Like, if any podcast hosts played in high school with someone they're talking about their team in the playoffs, like you want to acknowledge it naturally. I've always made a point, like I always kind of downplay that, and I just think it's cool, man. I remember watching him. Go back and watch that legendary Monday Night Football game between the Rams and the Kansas City Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes, Jared Goff. He had 2 defensive touchdowns in that football game. Like, he's an incredible football player, and just like I don't know, man. I love watching a guy that used to come to our house for breakfast, like dominate the NFL. Like I said, I never want to leverage that relationship. Like I just root for him from afar.
I appreciate that, but I brought it up. It made me smile, and I'll be so happy for him if he gets to the Super Bowl. That just make me happy.
Oh, hell yeah, man. I'd love to see him win one. That'd be incredible.
Okay, Chiefs, Jaguars.
We got to start with the Jaguars because the Jaguars made it interesting. They lost by 7 points. I had no expectations for the Jaguars going into this football game. I didn't think they were going to win. And there's nothing to be ashamed of losing to Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs in a playoff game. Like, from my perspective, the Giants and the Jaguars were in similar positions this weekend. The Giants got obliterated. And I was like, I still walked away like, I'm just glad they were there. The Jaguars, I was just glad they were there. And they actually made it interesting and put up a fight and lost by 7. That's pretty cool. And I would say this loss and this year, really this season for the Jaguars, is the beginning of their domination of the AFC South. Similar to the way that Tom Brady and the Patriots dominated the AFC East for years. You look around the AFC South, Houston, Indy's a disaster. Tennessee's got kind of a mess going on. The Jaguars are on. It's the beginning of them winning the division, I think, for years and years to come with Doug Peterson and Trevor Lawrence. And I just walk away with nothing but respect and happiness for what the Jaguars accomplished this year, and losing the way they did on the road to Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City, a team that's potentially going to win the Super Bowl this year. No shame in that. Did you walk away feeling just like a sense of, hey man, I'm surprised and pleasantly surprised they made it interesting against Kansas City?
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm not surprised. I loved Trevor Lawrence had great presence in his press conference afterwards. He was sad, but hey, we're building something. We're good. We're all for it. We're moving ahead. Yeah, I think they're going to do just great in the future, and I look forward to seeing them continue to move on. I'm so glad he has a great coach. Um, yeah, I just felt good about all of it.
Is Doug Peterson? I don't know that he's coach of the year, but you look around the NFL, I think like Doug Peterson, Kevin O'Connell, Kyle Shanahan with the 49ers. Like, it's pretty hard to take your team to the cusp of a Super Bowl with three different starting quarterbacks throughout the year. Brian Dable maybe is in the conversation. Those are like the four coaches I think of, and I think a coach of the year. And again, I don't know that Doug Peterson is the best coach of the year and did the most impressive coaching job this year. But you look at where the Jaguars were this exact time a year ago, like, it's night and day. Totally different organization. I mean, I know they brought in some new players and built around Trevor Lawrence, but it's what he's built there and the confidence. And I really love the relationship between Trevor Lawrence and Carson Wentz. Doug Peterson's a former NFL quarterback, and Doug Peterson had kind of after what happened with Carson Wentz getting hurt, they won a Super Bowl with Nick Foles. I always thought that Carson Wentz and Doug Peterson were going to have a long career working together. And I think what happened was Carson Wentz's confidence just went in the toilet, and it's hard to work with a guy who doesn't believe in himself. And then Jalen Hurts was behind Carson Wentz, really pushing, and Doug Peterson ended up, starting Jalen Hurts instead of Carson Wentz. That relationship fell apart. But Trevor Lawrence and Doug Peterson can be what I thought Carson Wentz and Doug Peterson were going to be, where they're going to work together for the next 10 to 15 years and win a lot of games and have a lot of fun. And I think there couldn't be a better person to work with Trevor Lawrence, given the fact that Doug played quarterback in the NFL and has a lot of offensive experience. I think it's a match made in heaven, these two these two people coaching quarterback.
Yeah, I think they're going to do absolutely fantastic. I feel good about them. All right, now the Chiefs. I just so incredible to hear over and over again. Mahomes to Kelsey, Mahomes to Kelsey, Mahomes to Kelsey. Travis Kelsey got 25% of their passes, and
98
yeah,
yards, 2 touchdowns, 14 catches. And it's not in front of me written down. I just know that. I just, it's like ingrained in my memory because the Jaguars had no answer to stop Travis Kelsey. And I almost felt bad for them because it's like, did you guys not have a plan, or like, what's happening here? Right. Um, so that was interesting to me, though. The story of this game, like, if there's one thing to focus on from the Jaguars Kansas City football game, playoff game, it's that Patrick Mahomes got hurt. He's got a high ankle sprain. And I'm just really curious how it impacts his play next week because um, I think he's an incredible quarterback, but he just lost a massive dynamic of his game. Part of what Patrick Mahomes is incredible from the pocket. He's just got an incredible ability to throw the football. But his ability to extend plays and ad lib and keep a play alive and make stuff happen outside of structure is a big element of his game. It's like if there's a piece of the pie, it's a big piece and maybe a couple pieces of the pie that makes up what is great about Patrick Mahomes. And for him to be a bit hamstrung and not have him playing at full potential is concerning for next weekend. So I think if there's one thing you're going to focus on from this game, it's that Patrick Mahomes got hurt, and that leads to a lot of uncertainty moving forward.
so here's what blew my mind.
Okay.
Chad Henne comes in, goes 98 yards, and scores a touchdown. Um, if Patrick Mahomes is at 70%, are they better off with 100% Chad Henne or 60 or 70% Patrick Mahomes? I know that sounds blasphemy and insane to ask.
No, I'm not going to criticize you. I like that you asked that question. Okay, I think it's a reasonable question, but here's why. I think just it's cool to explain why Patrick Mahomes is a better option, even at 70% than Chad Henne. Neither Chad Henne or Patrick Mahomes currently are mobile quarterbacks. Chad Henne's not going to run around and extend plays. And because of an injury, neither is Patrick Mahomes. And so if you're going to have one guy stuck in the pocket, would you rather have Chad Henne or Patrick Mahomes? The obvious, easy answer is Patrick Mahomes. And so if there was something that Chad Henne brought to the table that was better than a I don't want to say crippled, but a Patrick Mahomes who can't run around, I would maybe say yes. Yeah,
one-legged
Patrick
Patrick Mahomes.
Patrick Mahomes on one leg who can't run around is still better than Chad Henne because there's nothing that Chad Henne does that's better than Patrick Mahomes. There's no angle here where you're like, well, he can't do this, but he can do. There's nothing you can say that about. There's nothing that you benefit from playing Chad Henne. But how cool is it, man? I think how old is the guy? Like 37 years old. I forgot that Chad Henne was still in the NFL. Like I literally, I think I knew that in my head. Like I've got a kind of a good feel for who is in the NFL, and I follow the rosters pretty closely. But I just like I didn't remember that he was. Chad Henne is 37 years old, drafted in 2008. Like the guy's been in the league forever, and he's still around. And it's cool to see a guy, in that moment, he only threw for 23 yards, 5 for 7, 23 yards and a touchdown, really only one drive. And on a drive, you go 98 yards and your quarterback only throws for 23 yards on that drive. You're not exactly being led by your quarterback there, but it's cool to see a guy, come off the bench and play really well. And Travis Kelce had nothing but good stuff to say about. If you want to have fun, go look up Travis Kelce sound bites Chad Henne. That Google's or that YouTube search will get you some fun content. And I don't know, it's cool, man. I really think it's a fun story. But again, there's no benefit to playing Chad Henne over Patrick Mahomes.
What if Patrick? So I think there might be. I know this is crazy.
You're crazy.
Yep. So and bring on the haters in the comments, man. I still haven't got any hateful comments. Come on now. But what if Patrick Mahomes? He's playing hurt, and what if his pain dulls his ability to mentally do what he needs to do, and then will the team play? They're going to play like they're playing, call plays, and act like it's 100% Patrick Mahomes, but really they need to adjust to a 60% Patrick Mahomes. Whereas if it's Chad Henne, they are going to play different and definitely call different plays because they know the guy is not as good. They know that they have to adjust.
These are all reasonable questions, but we saw Patrick Mahomes come back in the second half and have success. And so, like, they had a 75-yard touchdown drive in the fourth quarter with a injured Patrick Mahomes. I don't see a team that isn't going to be able to move the football or something with Patrick Mahomes. If they lose, no one's going to say, and not just no one's going to say, but no one's going to believe, and I won't believe, man, they should have played Chad Henne. That would have been the difference in the football game. It's because it's just not true. Like, I think everything you're saying is actually the reasonable questions to ask for like a thought experiment. Yep. But like, it's just not.
And so just to be clear, true. I would start Patrick Mahomes and I would play him, but I would probably have a short hook because what if he has just a horrible first half and they're down by 2 touchdowns and he hasn't been able to do anything? Then what?
Well, I still would say who is more likely to catch fire? Okay. Patrick Mahomes or Chad Henne? Like you live and die. That's the guy you're paid, what, a $500 million contract? Like, you're just not, there's just no reasonable world where you're going to take Patrick Mahomes out. And in fact, there's 2 things I want to say here. First of all, like, you got to believe that the guy who can get you out of trouble, if you're in trouble, is even still Patrick Mahomes, even with an injury. But also, you said, like, what if the team can't adjust to Mahomes' injury? I think that is a little bit you're underestimating Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy and the offensive minds in Kansas City. You think Andy Reid can't assess what he's got and make adjustments?
Like, I think Andy Reid's a genius.
Yeah. So like, no. So like, I actually hope you don't get any hate for asking these questions. It should be a safe place to ask questions. And I think they're reasonable questions to ask. But I think the answers to all of them is you're better off playing Patrick Mahomes, and Andy Reid's going to find a way.
Well, I would have played Patrick Mahomes, period.
Yeah.
But I wanted to hear your thoughts on it because you're my favorite sports commentator, and these are things
these are things that are going to be asked in comment sections and on Twitter, and fans are wondering these things. So I think that's a benefit you bring to the show is you bring the perspective of what a fan might think, and wonder. And do you want to just move on to next week and talk about the games next weekend?
I want to save that for the end because to me that's like the candy. That's the best part.
Okay,
That's the
that's the end of
dessert.
the show.
Yeah, the
Okay.
end of the show. So what you got two other things, is that right?
Well, yeah. Do you have any more to say about KC and Jacksonville?
No, I think I covered it.
Yeah,
I
I
think
think
we
so
covered
too.
it.
I have seen. So I the other day was in San Luis Obispo, California. A man named Steven messaged me, said, "Hey, I've been a subscriber here for like 4 years. I love your show. A big fan of you. Do you want to get lunch?" So we had lunch. He's a Raiders fan. Steven really believes that Tom Brady's going to go be the quarterback of his football team, the Las Vegas Raiders. I'm actually in Vegas right now. He's a huge Raider fan. Steven, a Raiders fan, believes they're going to get Tom Brady. And I was like, what is that? Do people believe that? And then I started seeing not only Steven believes that, but other people believe that. Not you, Steven, but Steven, the Raider fan. And I started seeing posts on social media and uh, a a a conversation happening that there's a belief that Tom Brady's going to go be the Raiders quarterback next year. I understand why people reach that conclusion. The Raiders got rid of Derek Carr. They need a quarterback. And their head coach is Josh McDaniels, who worked with Tom Brady for years and years and years. So I understand why people would believe Tom Brady might go to the Raiders, but I don't agree at all. I think he's considering it the same way you consider moving to, someone says, you want to buy a house in Iowa? It's like $30,000. You consider it because it's a good deal, but you don't do it because it's Iowa and it's negative 37 degrees and flat as hell in the winter. I'm sure he's considering it because you have to consider every option. And it is Josh McDaniels, he knows. But I ask you this, what does Tom Brady benefit by going to the Raiders other than having a place to play? They're not going to win a Super Bowl, Tom Brady. So why would he go there? Do you think I'm crazy? Do you think Tom Brady would actually go to the Raiders?
No, no, no chance in hell. No, it's not
No.
going to happen. In fact, I think that coach of the Raiders is
Josh McDaniel.
Josh McDaniel. My personal guess, based on my inside sources, is that he wants Garoppolo.
Oh.
He
See that
he he
that actually is
obviously
interesting.
he ditched Derek Carr for some reason. He kicked Derek Carr to the curb for some reason. I like Derek Carr. I wouldn't have done that. I think Derek Carr's had a good future ahead of him. I think that was a foolish choice of his. However, he's got his eyeball on someone that he thinks he can get. He's not an idiot. He's a
There's
smart coach.
there's thought behind it. It's
His
intentional.
story makes sense to him, and he's not a dumb man, and he's a good offensive coach. So I think that he wants Garoppolo.
Yeah, everyone's talking about the quarterback Josh McDaniel used to work. Josh McDaniel's got an S on it. Everyone's talking about the quarterback Josh McDaniels used to work with, and they're pointing at the wrong one. They're pointing at Tom Brady when they should be pointing at Jimmy Garoppolo.
That's my analysis.
That actually fires me up because that makes sense. I could see Jimmy Garoppolo in the silver and black. I think it's a good deal where the Raiders would get a cheaper, more cost-effective contract at quarterback than Derek Carr currently offers. And like I said, from the Raiders' perspective, it makes sense to bring in Tom Brady because you have a need at quarterback. I guess, right? He's older, but whatever.
And he sells tickets.
Yeah, but from Tom Brady's perspective, what does Tom Brady get out of it? You go to the Raiders, who aren't in a position to compete for a Super Bowl. The only reason why Tom Brady would go to the Raiders is if no one else wants him, right? Like if let's say the Saints don't want him, Miami doesn't want him, the Jets don't want him. If you go down the list and there's nobody who's in a position to win sooner who wants Tom Brady, he's like, okay, no one wants me, but I don't want to retire. I want to keep playing football and pad my stats and maybe playing somewhere. I got a better shot at winning a Super Bowl by playing than I do from sitting on my couch. So I'll go to the Raiders. But the Raiders are not anywhere near his first option. No. And they're a backup plan, not his plan.
And the Jets are going to get Rodgers if they get anybody. I think
Can we talk about that?
Is more likely to the Jets than Brady to the Jets. Personally.
Yeah, first of all, where do you think Tom Brady could go? We talked about this last week, but I think Miami
first, and then Saints number 2.
Now, is it more likely Tom Brady goes back to New England or goes to the Raiders?
Raiders.
What if there was a trade, Mac Jones to the Raiders, and then Tom Brady goes to New England? I know Steven, the Raiders fan, doesn't want Mac Jones. I asked him that question. It was a hilarious conversation. But I don't know. It's going to be an interesting quarterback carousel this offseason, and I'm curious where Tom Brady's going to go. Now, Go
I
ahead.
would not be shocked if he went back to the Patriots and it would be a swan song and say goodbye, and the Patriot fans would be out of their minds. And he's the only person that can stand up to Bill Belichick and say, "Hell no, I'm not doing that play," and get away with it. Um, I just don't think he wants to do that. I just think he's done.
And what does Bill Belichick get out of it? Because the narrative about Bill Belichick that I would imagine he despises is you can't win without Tom Brady. You bring back Tom Brady, even if you win, you still lose because the narrative remains that you can't win unless you have Tom Brady.
Yeah,
And I think that matters. I think at this point, you won 6 Super Bowls. I think that does matter to Bill Belichick currently. Is you want
yeah,
to prove you can do it without Tom Brady. I think little things like that, when you're this deep into your career, you've won as much as you have, you set new goals and find new ways to motivate yourself. And one of the things I think that currently motivates Bill Belichick is I want to win one without Tom Brady. The same way that Sean McVay, this year with the Las Vegas Rams, they had a bad year. They've got no quarterback. When he had a reason to get excited, they brought in Baker Mayfield. It brought new life to Sean McVay. He had something he was interested again in football. Um,
so,
now, go ahead.
the crazy place, and I don't know if I said this last week or not, that I would love to see Tom Brady go to is the Packers. Send Aaron
Interesting.
Rodgers to the Jets and send Brady to the Packers. That would be fun. That would be fun.
You know who I think would play well? I think Derek Carr to Seattle's like an incredible, awesome opportunity. Like he fits Pete Carroll,
Yeah, I think that'd be
but
great together.
Pete Carroll and Tom Brady would be pretty fun, wouldn't it? I think so. I think it'd be interesting.
I don't know if Pete Carroll's buttoned up enough for Tom Brady.
But this is a new Tom Brady. This is Florida man. This is Tom Brady. Literally, his shirt is unbuttoned because it's in Florida and it's hot. Like it's literally unbuttoned Tom Brady. So I think it does work. I think it's fun. I don't know. There's a lot of options. It'll be a fun quarterback carousel this offseason. Let's talk about something you brought up. Aaron Rodgers to the Jets. There's a couple reasons why I like this. Number one, it's consistency. Brett Favre left Green Bay to go to the Jets. Aaron Rodgers might leave Green Bay to go to the Jets. That's a hilarious coincidence that I love. I think they also both spent 16 years in Green Bay, which is like the parallels are. It's like, is someone writing this script or what's happening here? But also, I think Zach Wilson, who is the Jets' young quarterback, is not hopeless. A lot of people have given up on him, say he's doo-doo and terrible and can't win ever again. I hate that attitude. I don't think you give up on a young player that quickly, and he's certainly not been good. We'll do a film analysis this offseason and talk about it. But I will say, like, I know some people that know Zach Wilson. Like when Zach Wilson was doing the draft process and leaving BYU to go to the NFL, I had friends who played with him at BYU telling me about Zach Wilson, saying like this dude loves football. He's obsessed. It's all he does. Like it's real. Like he really does love football. Say what you want about Zach Wilson. It's his passion. It's like he lives and breathes football. And his favorite quarterback to watch on film was Aaron Rodgers. And I love, can you imagine Zach Wilson getting the opportunity? You don't like Aaron Rodgers for like personal reasons about how he carries himself. But I think for the development of Zach Wilson, to have Zach Wilson sit behind Aaron Rodgers for a year or two and learn and grow and get advice. And I think at this point in Aaron Rodgers' career, he knows he's better than Zach Wilson. He's not threatened by Zach Wilson. But I could see him the same way when they had a joint practice earlier this year. It was either a preseason game or a joint practice. Aaron and Zach Wilson were like sharing details, and Aaron was openly helping Zach Wilson make progress and get better as a quarterback by sharing wisdom and secrets. I think 2 years of sitting behind Aaron Rodgers, getting wisdom and secrets and observing his process, which Zach Wilson was the day one starter in the Jets after he was drafted. He had Joe Flacco as his mentor. Okay. Is that really that great? I think for him to sit behind Aaron, who, whether you like him or not, you have to acknowledge he does a lot of stuff right at the quarterback position when it comes to decision making and throwing the football. I think that for the long term future of the Jets, they're ready to win. Aaron's better than what they got, and Aaron gives them a shot at the playoffs for sure. And it also could salvage Zach Wilson's career, letting him sit behind Aaron Rodgers and learn. What do you have to say to all that?
Well, my sources have told me that what I've heard is that when it comes to Zach Wilson, he loves football almost as much as Kyler Murray loves Call of Duty.
Hey, I'll tell you what. It's really bizarre actually when you look at the numbers. Like I know it's a tangent, but when you look at Kyler Murray, like his stats, and then line them up with Call of Duty XP weekends, it's like the weekends that are big in the Call of Duty world, he plays bad. It's like hilarious. It's very weird. If you ever want to go down a rabbit hole, look at that. Um, so thanks for being 22 years old and giving us like a little pithy, fun college comment. I appreciate that. Now, what I don't want you to say next is I don't want you to hate on Aaron Rodgers. I want you to put on your objectivity hat. I know it's hard for you, but do you think Zach Wilson benefits from sitting behind Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah, I think learning to glare at other players and
God
yell
dang
at your
it!
teammates and to yell at
No,
the defense is such a great
no,
skill.
no. Okay, now let's move on.
Okay, and there's a guy named Bill you're fired up about.
Yeah, I can't believe you did that, man. Oh man. At least you're consistent, right? I know what to expect from you now. If you ever want Steven Shomler to say anything positive about Aaron Rodgers, you're gonna be waiting for a long, long, long time.
I just hope he stays at the Packers so they can miss the playoffs yet again. That would be so wonderful. Because the Detroit is gonna win this year.
I do think the Lions are poised to win the division next year in the NFC North. Hey, what if Aaron Rodgers makes the playoffs with the Jets and wins a playoff game? How are you gonna react to that? How are you gonna feel? What are you gonna do?
I think that would be fine. That'd be great.
Would you be happy for Jets fans at least?
For sure. Yes. I always
Yeah.
feel bad for fans. I mean, except maybe the Cowboys fans, but otherwise, I feel bad for fans. I want fans, and even though I don't feel bad for Cowboys fans, I feel bad for Dak Wilson. I feel bad for Jerry Jones. I do have a heart.
Dak Prescott, yeah.
I mean, Dak Prescott.
So for a long time, there's been a conversation I've been having, which is that the Patriots are a mess on offense, and they just need an offensive coordinator. Finally, they made a move. They hired Bill O'Brien, Bill O'Brien was the Patriots offensive coordinator for a while. Then, he did well with Tom Brady. He went to Penn State to be the head coach. Then he went to Houston to be the head coach. Then he got fired by Houston, and that was not great. But he's been at Alabama recently, working with Nick Saban and Bryce Young. Now, Bill O'Brien is back with the Patriots. I think Bill O'Brien is a very good offensive coordinator. He may not have been a great head coach, but he's good at designing offense and worked well with Tom Brady. I like this move. I think it's an upgrade for the Patriots to get finally a legitimate offensive coordinator, Bill O'Brien. And it makes me wonder. I've got a lot of questions because last offseason, the Patriots didn't have an offensive coordinator. And they made this weird move when they were like waffling back and forth between Matt Patricia and Joe Judge, and they never actually named an official offensive coordinator all year. They had, Pat Patricia was the play caller, but not the, as de facto offensive coordinator, but not OC in title. I have to wonder, were there conversations behind the scenes between Bill O'Brien and Bill Belichick last offseason? I would imagine so. When they need an offensive coordinator, and I wonder if Bill O'Brien stayed in college at Alabama to keep working with Bryce Young, this lovely, awesome quarterback that they had. And it's a good leaping off point where I think Bill O'Brien worked well with Nick Saban. I think they liked each other, but you lost your quarterback, and now you got a new job opportunity with a coach you worked for before, Bill Belichick. It's interesting given the relationship between Bill Belichick and Nick Saban. They've got this coach that is kind of going back and forth between them. It's really interesting to me. Do you think Bill O'Brien's an upgrade for the Patriots? And how do you feel about it all?
No, I just think they were much better off having a barely adequate defensive coordinator like Mike Patricia. What's his first name? By him.
The almost British sarcasm. No, I think the Patriots were actually better off with a defensive coordinator running their offense. A guy who wasn't even that great, by the way.
Matt Patricia. Just say it out loud. Just say it out loud. They had a defensive coordinator not being the offensive coordinator.
Yeah, they wouldn't even give him a title, actually.
Yeah, just say it out loud. It's insanity. Yes, of course they're better off with having an offensive coordinator this year instead of a defensive coordinator run the offense.
So now they're better off, yes. But do you feel good about Bill O'Brien? Because I think head coach and offensive coordinator are a different skill set completely. And you can be a good offensive coordinator and a bad head coach. We saw Pat Shurmur was an awesome offensive coordinator with the Vikings and a terrible head coach for the Giants. So Bill O'Brien didn't work as a Texans head coach, but I think he can run the offense.
Yeah, I like quarterbacks, and I want quarterbacks to succeed, most of them. And therefore, I'm very happy for Mac Jones, because Mac Jones now has an actual defensive coordinator, and this will be
Offensive
his
coordinator.
third in 3 years. But at least now this year he actually has one. Last year he didn't even have one. That was ridiculous.
So Mac Jones got a better offensive coordinator. It's also worth mentioning that
Not better.
the skill
He
set.
got one. He didn't have one last year.
Well, the skill set between Mac Jones and Tom Brady is a lot of parallels between their ability, and they can't run. They got to win in a similar style. Bill O'Brien worked well with Tom Brady. And so I would imagine, given that they've got a similar skill set, Tom Brady and Mac Jones, he's going to work well with Mac Jones as well. So it's just, I think you're putting Mac Jones in a much better position to succeed than he's been in recently.
Yeah, and if I was Mac Jones, I would be very tempted to say I'm not playing for you this year. I'd be very tempted to say I'm out. Mac Jones out.
Yeah, I mean they might have. Think of the so after his rookie year, Mac Jones, the common belief was this guy's a franchise quarterback. He led into a playoff game, and he's going to get better. Was the belief, right? There was positive outlook about Mac Jones. Then he goes through a whole year of Bill Belichick not naming an offensive coordinator, giving him this, not even giving him an offensive coordinator. I'd be like, dude, you sabotaged my career. I would totally understand if that's how Mac Jones feels. He's not going to do anything like that. He's not going to ruffle feathers and say, I'm not going to play for you. I think he's just really happy to have Bill O'Brien. But I would imagine when Mac Jones talks to his family behind closed doors about this last year, he's like, I got totally screwed. It was unfair. All year I was put in a bad situation all year. I would be frustrated. I just don't think he's ever going to say that publicly.
Yeah, I'm old now, and I don't really want to put up with nonsense and BS. So if I was his dad, I'd be like, "Why are you staying? Just tell him you're done. Have your agent say you want to be traded, and you're done. They're not going to win. They're not going to get any better. Belichick's done. They don't respect you. Go somewhere you're wanted and appreciated. And you can't win with the fan base. Why not? Why not say I'm out? I'm out. I'm not showing up for training camp. I'm done. Trade me. I want to succeed in football. I don't understand why he wouldn't do that. I see no reason why he wouldn't.
I know exactly why. So that's a move you could have made in August 2022. August 2022, they're like, hey, this guy who was a defensive coordinator and was a bad head coach of the Lions, he's going to be calling plays for you now. That's when his value is at a high, where he had leverage to say, I'm not doing that. You want what now? You're putting me in what situation? And you want me to try to win and succeed? That's a terrible thing for my career. But now, because the way he's viewed has changed, he doesn't have any leverage. So now all Mac Jones can try to do is save his career and hope Bill O'Brien helps him succeed. That's all.
So you think no team would want him?
Fair enough. I mean, you're right. But okay, who would want him though? And the teams that you can name are not good teams. And if you're telling me that it's better for Mac Jones to go to, I don't know, who's a really terrible football team that needs a quarterback?
The Colts.
Is it better for Mac Jones to go to the Colts or New England?
Depends who the Colts quarterback's going to be. I mean, head coach.
Depends who the Colts head coach is going to be.
Yeah.
You think there's, okay, fair enough. If they hire Sean Payton in Indy, Mac Jones is going to succeed there. But I don't think they're going to hire. I think they're going to hire Jeff Saturday or something. You're right. But there's it's a small amount of opportunities for Mac Jones that are available to him that are actually better than New England.
So you think that
it's circumstantial.
To stay, improve his stock because he's going to play at least better this next year than last year, and then he still has it's a 4 or 5 year rookie contract that he has where he can escape.
4 years with a 5th year option the team can exercise that you can say you don't want. So he's got at least 2 more years in New England. But I think he's gonna do okay. I think he's actually gonna. I believe Mac Jones is gonna raise his stock next year playing for Bill O'Brien. I really believe that.
And the report you heard is that the players loved it. The players were not happy with the what is it? Bailey Zappi with the Bailey Zappi era. The players loved Mac Jones.
Yeah.
So that's the report. If they're
the players support Mac Jones, and I believe that.
Yep.
Bailey Zappi was running a really simplified offense and not. If I'm a receiver, I would have been very unsatisfied. And so I think the players can recognize, hey, Mac Jones is our guy. He's the right one for us. I just think Mac Jones is the best position he's going to get all year and the best offer, I guess, he's going to have. unless the Colts hire Sean Payton, which they're not. The Colts aren't going to hire an incredible, competent head coach. That's not going to happen. I love that. But look at me, Dad. They're not. The Colts aren't going to hire an impressive, dynamic head coach. They're just not going to. They're probably going to keep Jeff Saturday. So there's not a realistic option out there that's better for Mac Jones than staying in New England and gutting it out and making the best you can with an offensive coordinator, Bill O'Brien, who I think is going to put you in a position to succeed.
So if I was Mac Jones' dad, I'd be like, "So you're screwed. So we have to really see you maybe succeed in 3 years." Wow, that's just discouraging to me.
I totally agree. But again,
Okay,
I think if you're Mac Jones, you're mad about what just happened to you, and now you're trying to recover.
yeah.
And it sucks. You got screwed. And I think if internally he holds a bit of a grudge towards what happened to him, totally justified.
Well, to me, it wouldn't be a grudge. It'd be the reality that the same idiots that screwed me are still running the ship.
Yeah.
It's the same dum dums. Same dum dums are
Well,
in charge.
so let's talk about this for a second then. Does 2022, this year with Matt Patricia calling your plays and running your offense, I think it hurts Bill Belichick's legacy. When it happened, I was like, okay, it's Bill Belichick. If anyone is going to do something crazy like this and succeed, it's Bill Belichick. But it didn't succeed.
Okay,
So Bill Belichick lost a little bit of respect from me.
so here's what I would do as Mac Jones' dad. I would be hoping that next year is Belichick's last year and Mac Jones outlasts him.
Totally. And I think that's very reasonable. In fact, I think that's what's going to happen.
Yeah. Okay, Eagles 49ers.
Yeah, let's talk about next weekend, man. I'm really glad you're here because I don't have a prediction for the Eagles 49ers. I want Philly to win. Although I'd be happy if the 49ers won because I love Brock Purdy. But this is a game I'm going to sit back. I need to find a place to watch it actually this weekend. I want to go to like a bar or something and find a location to watch the game. I'm in Vegas. It can't be that hard to find a
So the
place to watch the
MGM
game.
Grand has a great whatever you go where you place your bets. They have all of the big hotels do the big casinos where they have big huge screens and everybody's there watching the game and yeah.
Well, you know I love gambling and totally have money to gamble.
You just sit there and have a Coke or whatever, since you don't drink real alcohol.
Can I have fries and a cocktail and watch the game?
Yes.
Is that acceptable in the MGM Grand? To not spend any more money than that
Yeah,
and
just
chill?
go to the big room. I can't believe I can't think.
It's like a Buffalo Wild Wings, right? If you're that kind of environment. Okay,
Yeah.
I'll do that.
But
That'll be awesome.
go check it out and go. It's I've been to the MGM Grand. You go and I think you go to the left and just check it out and see what I'm talking about. They have all the games on the screen. What?
Is parking going to be a problem for me at the MGM Grand? I would imagine they got parking,
No,
right?
they got gazillions of parking. So I mean,
yeah, cool.
All of the big places will.
Yeah.
But you just go and watch the game there.
I'll find a spot. I got a parking spot at the Luxor Hotel through the weekend. So maybe I'll go park there. I'm probably going to watch it at the Luxor Hotel because again, I got free parking there because of
find out
the
where
Shrine
there's
Bowl.
good. Find out where there's a good. Just go check it out in advance. Scope it out.
Yeah, I'll be there tomorrow, so I'll check it out.
And then you give us an update next week.
So I'll tell you this. I need to find somewhere to watch the game because I'm excited for this game. I have no idea who's going to win authentically. Like I don't have there are some times I'm like, I know who's going to win here. I don't know. There's so much talent everywhere. I think it's going to be a bloodbath. I do think, I take this back. I'll make a prediction here. I think the Eagles are going to win because I think Jalen Hurts is a better quarterback than Brock Purdy. I think Nick Sirianni's a better leader and better motivator and better coach than Kyle Shanahan. I think the Eagles are a better roster. I think the Eagles win a really close, really intense fight. What do you say?
Same thing. Exactly. Although I won't be surprised if the Eagles win by 2 touchdowns. That won't shock me.
So here's a fun question I love to think about. If one team is going to win by way of a blowout, we both think it's Philly, right? We don't see the 49ers blowing out Philadelphia. It's not going to go the other way.
No.
The only way the 49ers win this football game is in a really close, tight game with like a last-second field goal or something, correct?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And I just think the odds are that Brock Purdy right? No, who's the coach of the 49ers?
The coach, Kyle Shanahan, the quarterback of the 49ers?
Yeah.
I know. My dad is like, he knows these people. He's just terrible with names. He's got dyslexia. He does his best. Brock Purdy is who you're talking about, the 49ers quarterback.
Yes. I don't want this on. I want him to succeed, but I think odds of him making a mistake or two that there's no room for error in this game. And I think there's a better chance of him making that mistake than Jalen Hurts.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. If there's gonna be a late interception that's costly,
It doesn't
the
have to
one to
be
throw
late. It
that
can be interception in the second quarter that stops them from getting a field goal and they lose by 3 points.
but
I just
because the margin for error is so low. Do you
yes,
think the person who's gonna handle that small margin worse is Brock Purdy than Jalen Hurts?
yes, not because he's not a good quarterback. He just Jalen Hurts has more experience, is better all the way around.
He's a better quarterback. Yeah.
Yeah,
No, I totally agree. I think
nothing. There's anything wrong with Brock Purdy, just that Jalen is better.
I like that's a very reasoned take to say this is not a shot at Brock Purdy. I just
No,
think that
not at all.
Jalen Hurts is better.
Yep.
That's totally fair.
Yeah, and I think
Kansas City, yeah,
it'll come down to I think it'll come down to, maybe, and particularly if it happens in the second or first or second quarter, no one will think of that's the mistake that cost them the game. But that's what I'll be looking for. Whether it's an offensive or defensive mistake, I think it's more likely to happen on the 49ers side than on the Eagles side.
it could be as simple as you're backed up in your own field. You're like backed up. You're starting the drive on your own 6 yard line, and you go three and out. Where like you really need a first down there to give your defense a rest and get a little better field position when you punt the ball away. The Eagles aren't getting the ball in like the 40 yard line. It could be as simple as a bad read on 3rd and 3 on your own 13 yard line, which results in a three and out, and it gives the Eagles a great opportunity to get great field position, score a touchdown. Then they're up 2 touchdowns instead. It could be that small.
That's what I think
Like,
will happen.
yeah, that margin of error is so small that you can see Brock Purdy, even that could really cost them the game because it's just going to be so tight. We both agree, though, it's going to be tight. And I think
Yep.
we're expecting a really close, competitive, fun game.
Yep. Bengals Chiefs.
So I got 3 points here that are worth talking about, I believe. Number one, Cincinnati. I am begging you. I don't care if you have to triple team Travis Kelce. For the love of God, make someone else beat you. Watching the Jaguars give up 14 catches, 98 yards, 2 touchdowns, and like I felt like every throw was like, and Travis Kelce gets another blank yards, and you're like, is anyone going to guard Travis Kelce? If the if Kansas City has a bunch of points and wins and beats Kansas City, I don't care as long as the person who beats them is not Travis Kelce. Make Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Juju Smith-Schuster, anyone can have a big game as long as it's not Travis Kelce. Like your game plan has to be, let's force someone else to beat us. Triple team him. I don't care. Make someone else beat you. And then a huge question for Kansas City is Patrick Mahomes' mobility, right? Like we both agree. I think Patrick Mahomes is incredible, but you're missing maybe a third of his game, which is his ability to extend plays and move outside of the pocket and make plays outside of structure. He with a high ankle sprain, I don't anticipate a lot of escaping sacks and running around and keeping plays alive. And when you watch Patrick Mahomes, that's a huge part of his game. It might be way more than a third of his game. That's a big piece of the pie. He's missing that. So you're playing with a quarterback who's not at full strength. And not only that, uh, part of what makes him so special is not available now. That's a huge deal. And then I ask you this question. We already talked about this, but you know, and we kind of quashed this conversation, but we had a conversation whether it's better for Cincinnati to lose here or lose the Super Bowl. But we kind of talked about it and we're like, well, no, it's if they're gonna you think Cincinnati could afford to lose the Super Bowl again and still recover.
Yeah, because they'll be they'll be kings of their division, and they will have kings of their conference, and they will have totally dethroned the Kansas City Chiefs, and they'll all feel good about that.
So I'm going to surprise myself. I'm ready to make 2 predictions this week. I think
Okay.
Philly's going to beat the 49ers. Cincinnati's going to beat Kansas City. That maybe I'm just swung by the compelling nature of Joe Burrow being the king of the AFC. That's like a fun thought. But man, I also think to have Patrick Mahomes, and I've watched so much of this guy. Like people think I hate Patrick Mahomes. He's so good. I almost find him boring because he's just so dominant. But man, like it's such a big part of his game to extend plays and work outside of structure. Think of how many times we've seen Mahomes make sidearm throws, rolling left or rolling right. He's not going to be rolling right. He's not going to be moving outside of the pocket. And the Bengals have got a good pass rush. They're going to get after the quarterback. So I think Patrick Mahomes' injury, and mixed with what Joe Burrow brings to the table, the Bengals are going to win. What say you?
I say the same thing, and I think that I think the unfortunate thing for the Kansas City Chiefs is how good Kelsey did against the Jaguars. There's no way a coach is going to overlook that. The 25% of the receptions, they're going to stop him. And I think I will not be surprised at all. The other thing they do is blitz the hell out of Patrick Mahomes. Blitz him, blitz him,
Mm.
blitz him because he's not mobile. They already have a good pass rush, have a couple other people, and I would see if it works. And my goal would be to wear out his offensive line because they're going to be stressed to protect him already. So, and when you're stressed and you're playing hard, you get worn out even faster. So, I'd be trying to physically and emotionally exhaust them with the fear that their quarterback's going down again. I would be playing the psychological game. We're coming after your quarterback with everything. We are pinning our ears back. We're coming after him, and you're going to fight like heck to stop us over and over and over again, and we're going to wear you out.
Steven Shomler, that's a surprisingly good football opinion from you, schematically. I actually want to disagree, though. No, you had me. I really liked it, but I thought while you were talking, I was kind of thinking about like, what would I do when Patrick Mahomes extends plays? It's usually because no one's open, and Patrick Mahomes does run to escape sacks, like he'll make a man miss and do that, but it's not as common as it is. Patrick Mahomes scans the field, he goes through his progression, there's nothing there, so he rolls right or he rolls left. What's going to happen if you bring a 4-man rush and he does exactly that? Okay, Travis Kelce's double covered, nothing here, nothing there. You're working through progression across the field. You get to the end of your progression, there's nothing open, and then Patrick Mahomes isn't able to run. What happens then?
That's why I would blitz him.
But I would think with that going on, what you want is Mahomes holding on to the ball for a long time to allow your 4-man rush to win in a one-on-one matchup, whether it's Trey Hendrickson or
So what does he do
Sam
though
Hubbard.
if no one's open and they're coming after him and he can't go make something happen because he can't hop fast enough. He's going to have to hop his way around the field.
Yeah, exactly.
So I just think he's
gonna be stuck in the pocket. He's a sitting duck.
Blitz him and sack him. Blitz him and sack him.
But
and
here's
wear out the
why.
offensive line.
I totally hear you. But I want Mahomes a sitting duck in the pocket because if you bring bodies and blitz the quarterback, what you're doing is creating a better matchup outside. And I think what Mahomes does really well and what Andy Reid does really well is recognize matchups. So if I blitz a linebacker, that's one less guy in coverage. So maybe the guy that is blitzing Patrick Mahomes could be the guy double covering Travis Kelce. What I'm saying is when you blitz Patrick Mahomes, you're actually playing into his strength. Because what Mahomes can't do right now is run around. He's got to get rid of the ball quickly. When you blitz him, you force him to get rid of the ball quickly, and you give him better matchups outside. If you're blitzing 2 safeties and playing cover 0, you got man-to-man coverage across the board. I don't want Patrick Mahomes throwing its man-to-man coverage. I want an injured Mahomes stuck in the pocket, holding onto the ball, unable to escape. I think, again, because Mahomes can't run, he's going to want to get rid of the ball quickly. And when you blitz him, you play into that and allow him better matchups to get rid of the ball quickly. I think it's actually a fool's errand to blitz him. I think you just make him stay in the pocket, nothing's open. He's a sitting duck, and eventually Trey Hendrickson or Sam Hubbard are going to win off the edge, win a one-on-one matchup, and sack the quarterback. I really think that's the best way to go about it. Genuinely. Don't blitz him. Force him to hold on the ball. What you don't want to do is give him good matchups outside. Am I making sense?
Yeah, what I'm hearing though is if either option works, I feel like advantage Cincinnati because there's this thing out there that Mahomes is not 100% and he's got a very painful injury.
So let me can I actually further explain what I was saying? I figured out how to put this best. Tom Brady, right? Tom Brady can't run around and extend plays, correct?
Yep.
Whose playing style is Patrick Mahomes going to be similar to this weekend when he can't run around? Tom Brady, right? Because he's going to have to play like Tom Brady this weekend, correct?
Can he make that adjustment?
Yeah, he can win from within the pocket.
No. So, can he mentally make that adjustment?
I do. Yes, I've seen him do it. So the number one thing you don't do against Tom Brady is blitz him.
Right.
Tom Brady will recognize he's coming off the edge. I got to get the ball out of my hands, find my best matchup. You know how you beat Tom Brady? With a 4-man rush. You make matchups outside hard. Everyone's covered. And eventually your defensive end, if you got a good D-line, is going to get pressure on Tom Brady. That's exactly what the Bengals are able to do. The Bengals can play against Patrick Mahomes the same way the Giants did against Tom Brady in 2011 with Michael Strahan and I forget the guy, Justin Tuck. And there's another guy who blew his fingers off, and maybe it's the same person. You have a good pass rush. So have faith that they're going to get after the quarterback and don't play into the strength. Again, Mahomes is going to be asked to play like Tom Brady this weekend. The key rule against Tom Brady is you don't blitz him because you just play into his hand. I think if you blitz Patrick Mahomes, you're playing into his hand and making his job easier. I really wouldn't blitz him. I'd bring a 4-man rush and wait till they can win. Because if you can't get pressure with a 4-man rush, you're not going to win anyway. And if you do, or if no one's open, he can't go anywhere anyway. Eventually, you're going to sack Patrick Mahomes. You don't blitz him. You bring a 4-man rush, and you just make sure no one's open downfield. That's what I would do.
Okay, well, I'm excited, looking forward to the game, looking forward to both games, and then most importantly, you have your French fries and a little cocktail. I am going to have spaghetti noodles with some chili on it and some shredded cheese, and that is going to be that's comfort food. It's not Skyline chili because I'm not in Cincinnati, but as close as I can, and I'm going to have it with both games because in my head it's just Burrow Day. Sunday is Burrow Day. That's what it is, and so I'm going to have his celebratory meal. Why celebrate Burrow Day?
You don't want to disrespect Skyline chili by using Nally chili and calling it Skyline chili.
It's not Skyline chili, but it's still chili and cheese and spaghetti noodles, which is amazing.
Yeah, it's like a spiritual homage to Skyline chili.
That's right. It's an homage.
So, but the game, I'm interested in this. The 49ers Eagles game is the first game of the day.
Noon.
I would have thought, because in my head, the later game is the more primetime game, 3:30 p.m. West Coast time. The evening game is the primetime game. Yep. The NFL views Bengals Patrick Mahomes as the primetime game, not 49ers Eagles. I guess it makes sense because it's two bigger quarterbacks.
Yep.
Who's more of a star, Jalen Hurts or Joe Burrow? Who's more of a star, Patrick Mahomes or Brock Purdy? But it's just interesting to me. Like, we can't really lose. They're both incredible games. I'm glad they're on Sunday. I'm going to just post up somewhere too and just hang out there for like 7 hours. I'm glad they're not on different days. It would suck if one was on Saturday, one was on Sunday. Sunday is going to be a holiday, man, in the Shomler family. It's going to be an incredible weekend of football.
Yep. All right. Well, you've done a great job this episode. I look forward to touching base with you next week here on Strong Opinion Sports and getting more you spitting those bombs, man.
Dude, I think we're getting better, to be honest.
That's all facts, no printer right there.
Do we tell them about what happened? We did record this episode already before, and it didn't work. We lost the footage and it wasn't usable. It was really painful. This is our second time recording this episode. I'm actually glad. I think because it's like getting reps, right? The more times you get reps at quarterback, the better you get. And I think our first recording wasn't as good as our second recording. We've now done this show 3 times, even though we've only had 2 episodes that are going to come out.
Yep.
But we get better every time, and this is our 3rd time ever recording the show together, and I think it's the best it's ever been. It's really fun. Pardon my French. You can cut that out. I think this is fun, man. I really enjoy this, and I think we did really well.
Yeah, I love. You're my favorite sports person. I love hearing what you have to share, and getting to be on the other side of it is just a joy. So,
all right, bam, we are done.